Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today we are going to be ranking all of the World of Warcraft races from S tier, which is awesome, to F tier, which is absolute garbage. All the races are here, the core races as well as the allied races, including the Herenar, which were recently added in Midnight. Starting things off strong, albeit a little bit controversial, with the Blood Elves. The Blood Elves, for those of us that played them back in TBC and we remember their original lore, they were a very badass, very manipulative, and very cruel race of people back in Burning Crusade. They formerly were the High Elves, and because of, well, their kingdom getting destroyed by Arthas and the Scourge, as well as one racist human knight, the High Elves left the Alliance, and they ended up joining the Horde. Throughout TBC, these guys had a bit of a complex story. On one hand, they were a broken people that were seeking to sort of rebuild the remnants of their civilization, and so you pitied them. But at the same time, they were a bunch of magic addicts that were so, I guess, enthralled by their vices, they went as far as becoming withered at times, meaning like these like husks of their former selves. And they also did a lot of interesting things, like they enslaved a Naru in Silvermoon City in order to be able to use the light, which is why Blood Elf Paladins became a thing on the Horde. And yeah, the way they treated the Draenei was most certainly not very good. And so these guys were like, they were like a kind of a selfish, narcissistic, self-serving race of people that you couldn't help but love. You loved their arrogance. And now, unfortunately, and this is a criticism that, you know, a lot of you guys talk about over on my Midnight videos here on this channel, the Blood Elves have become just kind of elves. Even in like recent Warcraft lore with Midnight, and I'm going to make a whole video talking about this here soon, but you know, the Blood Elves, where is their magic addiction? Like, where is their wickedness? Where is their, you know, their arrogance, their sense of superiority over like everybody? Like, you know, in the most recent Midnight patch, you have all the elves of Azeroth coming together as friends to make the Dawnwell. And so the Blood Elves went from being like this really cool, awesome, like elven race in World of Warcraft that were very wicked yet likable, to now they're just kind of generic elves. And now they're kind of boring. So, whereas in TBC, I would put these guys in S tier in half a second, right now, these guys are kind of like, maybe like C tier for me. They're just not that interesting in the game right now. Dark Iron Dwarves. Everybody loves Dark Iron Dwarves. They are a fantastic race. They have been a fan favorite enemy faction going all the way back to Classic WoW. And they do have a pretty good story as to how they ended up becoming an allied race within the Alliance through their queen. Whenever I play Classic WoW and I'm doing Blackrock Depths, even to this day, I absolutely love the Dark Iron ambience, the groaning male, you know, dwarven choirs and stuff, the lava, the volcanic like ambience that you can hear. And they're just such an aesthetically pleasing race to look at with their flaming beards and stuff. It's almost like ridiculous fantasy, but not so ridiculous that it isn't fun. I don't have as much to say about Dark Iron Dwarves right now compared to Blood Elves, because Blood Elves are kind of front and center in the newest WoW expansion. But Dark Iron Dwarves, they're such a cool race. I wouldn't say they're one of the best races in World of Warcraft, but they're definitely an A race, at least in my opinion. Next, we have the Drakthir. The Drakthir are kind of a meme in World of Warcraft with how much people do not like them as a race. And there are many reasons why people do not like the Drakthir and, you know, haven't liked them ever since they were introduced in Dragonflight. And the reasons are very diverse. Like, some people will say that the reason why they don't like the Drakthir is because for the longest time, this race could only be the Evoker class. It was if you wanted to be an Evoker, you had to be a Drakthir. Some people don't like the Drakthir because they feel that the Drakthir is Blizzard like pandering to their transgender audience, and people don't like that. There are people that don't like the fact that when you're in human form, you look like a drag queen. There are people that don't like the fact that you didn't get an option to create like a big buff, you know, manly looking lizard dude, like, you know, a proper like dragonkin. Instead, you gotta play as this like skinny, weak looking like Komodo dragon mutant thing. There's many reasons, okay? Whether you agree with them or disagree with them, you'll see them all over comment sections. You'll probably see it in this video, why people do not like the Drakthir race. In my opinion, though, I don't really like Drakthir, and the main reason why I don't like them is because when they were introduced in Dragonflight, I was expecting to be able to play as one of like the, you know, dragon humanoid big dudes from classic WoW. Like, you know, this big, buff, tall looking, you know, badass dragon guy, you know, like a freaking dragonborn from Dungeons and Dragons. And instead, we just kind of got this weak, pathetic looking dragon dude. And I'm just not a fan of the model, to be honest. I'm not a fan of like their default, you know, non-dragon models. I'm not a fan of their dragon models. And what can I say? I'm a very aesthetic person, I suppose. And so the Evoker class can be kind of fun. Like, I've played it, not as much as maybe you guys have, but it's not my favorite class in World of Warcraft. I am a big fan, though, of the augmentation spec with Drakthir, and I am a fan of the fact that Blizzard did make it, and eventually they made it so that Drakthir could be more than just the Evoker class. In my opinion, though, this is kind of more of like a D race for me. It's not an automatic F, at least in my opinion, because I think there's a lot more like bad races in World of Warcraft than the Drakthir. The Drakthir also kind of have a little bit of an interesting story going on behind them with like Deathwing and stuff, and, you know, being like a failed experiment. So at least they got like some lore behind them. It ain't like a Volpira. We'll get to them. So, spoiler for what's coming. All right, next we got the Draenei. I love the Draenei. The Draenei are one of my favorite races in World of Warcraft, going all the way back to TBC. And let me tell you something, I could sit here for a hot minute and I could geek out about some Draenei. All right. The only thing that I don't like about the Draenei is it's sort of similar to the Blood Elves, where I feel like when the Draenei were introduced in TBC, they were introduced as like this heroic, morally good race of people. But of course, they did have some flaws, like the way that they treated the Broken, for example. Like, if you read the story Unbroken, which I did this whole like audiobook narration for a few months ago, like if you read that, you'll see that the Draenei weren't exactly too kind to their fellow Draenei that were exposed to fell corruption during the whole genocide of their people on Draenor by the orcs. So they can be a little cruel sometimes with their zealot love of the holy light, but they are a very heroic, noble, virtuous, like overall good race. You know, they are probably the most, or they were like the most, I guess, good, if you want to use that word, race in World of Warcraft, at least for a long time. But then like Blizzard sort of, they didn't change the lore, but they leaned a lot more heavily into the morally gray territory with the light and the shadow, the void, and like all the races of the world and stuff, to the point that like the Draenei, at least in my opinion, went from like, I mean, one of their racials was literally heroic presence. Now, however, the Draenei just, whenever they pop up, they seem very nearsighted. They don't really like evoke a presence of being this ancient race that has traveled the stars. Like they don't, they seem just very blind in their faith to the point of stupidity at times. And in TBC, again, Draenei would be an S race for me, but right now, like, I think they're kind of on the same level as the Blood Elves. They're just kind of meh. Like, they're okay, I guess, but man, like, I don't like the modern Draenei. I used to be inspired by the Draenei back when I was younger to like go to the gym. So as silly as that sounds, it's like, what would Vindicator Maraud do? You know what I mean? There he is. What would Vindicator Maraud do? He'd fucking push this bench press. That's what he would do. Anyway, so Draenei, not as cool as they used to be. Okay, next we have the Dwarves. Okay, Dwarves are awesome. Dwarves are, in my opinion, one of the best races in World of Warcraft. They always have been. They always will be. I've never been like the biggest fan of playing as a dwarf, but like the dwarf is something that like I admire them from afar. Like even when I'm reading like the Silmarillion or I'm reading about the dwarves of Middle Earth and stuff, I never fantasize about being a dwarf, living down in like a cave or whatever. But I always, I love like their architecture and I love their music and just the vibe of the dwarves. Like they're definitely, I'm almost tempted to put them, I'm going to put them in the S category because like their story in classic WoW is so good. And not many people know about like just all the politics that are going all behind the scenes in classic WoW with like the dwarves and their cousins and their rivals and stuff. Like dwarves are great. Next we have the gnomes. Gnomes, like if you're a huge gnome fan in World of Warcraft, like I kind of feel sorry for you because I don't think Blizzard has ever taken gnomes seriously a day in their life. Like the gnomes were a last second addition to classic WoW. Fun fact, they were not planned originally. They were just thrown into the game. They immediately became a joke. No one really liked them. And like people played them ironically and because they're silly, and they added this sort of, I don't know, ridiculous tone to the game that kind of balanced out like the more hardcore like Warcraft stuff. Gnomes have never appeared in a live action cinematic yet, or not live action, but like a fully rendered like CGI cinematic, like an expansion intro. They've never appeared in one. Like gnomes, like, I mean, even after all these years, like gnomes still have not even reclaimed Gnomeregan. Like they've reclaimed like a part of it, but they're still cleaning it up. Even after like, I mean, how long has it been? Like 22 years? Gnomes for me, like they're not an F race. I'm almost tempted to put them in the D race, but there are some people, man, they'll swear by gnomes. Like, oh, gnomes are the best. But if you ask them, why do you like the gnomes? It ain't because of the lore. It ain't because of the storytelling. It ain't because of their rich characters. It ain't because of none of that. It's just, oh, they're silly. They're fun. They're jovial. And that's it. Like there's, I don't know. I'm going to throw the gnomes in the C category because at the end of the day, personally, I like gnomes more than I like Drakthir. I like them way more. Goblins in World of Warcraft have never been one of my favorite or like fun races, in WoW. I've never really enjoyed playing as them. I don't really like their tone. I don't really like the greed, I guess, that just like perverts their entire lore and culture and society and stuff. Maybe that's just because, I grew up in the woods in North Carolina. So, it's kind of like burned into my mind that like money ain't nothing. It's all about just like friends and family and, children and stuff like that. So like, goblins with their casinos and their whatever, it's so not me. Maybe for you guys, it's like, oh, goblins are great. They're so funny. Like, I love them. And, money's great. But, like, for me, like, this is going to shock some people. But, like, goblins are F tier for me. I cannot stand them. I hate them as a race. Sorry, WoW Krendor. Krendor loves goblins. Like, he delights in them. But sorry, Krendor. Anyway, let's move on to Tauren. Tauren. Yet again, it's another race very similar to dwarves for me. Like, I don't really play Tauren, but I admire Tauren from afar. I love their story. I love their vibe. I love like anything kind of like Native American. Like, I'm just a huge fan of. Like, I've just always been like just a big fan of just the aesthetics of the, I guess the West of the United States, out there on the Great Plains and stuff, and anything that kind of like invokes that imagery or that enchantment in my mind, like the Tauren do with Mulgore and their culture and stuff. Like, I mean, I just love it. They also have gone through so much, like as a people in their story with, losing Karen Bloodhoof to Garrosh Hellscream, and then Bane Bloodhoof, becoming like the High Chieftain, and then literally doing nothing, after that. Like, but they've gone through a few things, like in their storyline, dealing with the Grim Totem tribe and stuff. So I really like the Tauren. I wouldn't say that for me they're an S race, and I wouldn't even say they're an A race, but I would probably throw the Tauren in the B category. You know, B for Big Bull. That's right. Next, we have the humans of Azeroth. There is so much to say about the humans of Azeroth. They're awesome. Like, you want, like, crazy, like, xenophobic politics with humans, you got it with Gilneas. You want, like, your heroic kingdom fighting against, you know, the alien invaders from outer space, you got it with, like, Stormwind. You want, like, you know, the noble kingdom trying to survive against the undead plague, you got it with Lordaeron. You want the kingdom in the mountains, you know, with the snow and stuff, that's Alterac, you got it. Humans are so diverse in the lore. There's so much to love about humanity in World of Warcraft, which makes sense. I mean, it's the most relatable race because I think that most of us that are watching this video are human, you know, except for you. You know who you are. Anyway, they're the most relatable race in a while, so they're obviously an S tier race. Also, you know, Elwyn Forest, Stormwind, all of it is great. Next, we have the Kul Tiran humans. So the Kul Tirans, I think, are great. I love them, but like, I will admit, if you're somebody that you don't listen to sea shanties in your free time like I do, you probably aren't really going to be a big fan of Kul Tirans. And I'm not even kidding. Like, your relationship to sea shanties is your relationship to the Kul Tirans in World of Warcraft. For me, I have been listening to sea shanties for pretty much like most of my life. If you can name a sea shanty, I've probably listened to it. I probably know all the lyrics to it. Maybe. My friend Sean, he's even worse than me. That guy knows every single sea shanty written by every culture in the whole world. But anyway, Kul Tirans are awesome. They are not humans and dwarf awesome. They are not Dark Iron Dwarves awesome, but I will throw them. You know, I don't even know if they're necessarily Tauren awesome. Oh, this is actually a hard one. It's either B or C. I'm gonna say C. That's right. C, because they like the sea so much, you know what I mean? And also because I just think Tauren are just a little bit cooler than Kul Tirans, but that's my opinion. Lightforged Draenei are just a more zealot, more extreme, more absurd, and more, frankly, stupid version of the Draenei. They're not that interesting. There's really nothing to say about them. They're just Draenei that are members of the Army of the Light. But in my opinion, if you want to play a way more interesting Draenei, play a Draenei. I think that the Lightforged Draenei are like a D tier race. They're boring. Like, I don't know what else to say. Mag'har orcs are awesome, bro. These guys are just, they're the OG orcs from Draenor. They didn't drink the demon blood. They didn't go green. You know, they're honorable. They're vicious. These guys are great. They are an S tier allied race, at least in my opinion. And, you know, I don't even think that's my opinion. That is an S tier allied race right there. Everybody, man, like, goes out of their way to get these guys unlocked because they're just so cool. Like, and they're just a reskin of, like, you know, the orcs, like the original orcs. And yet, I don't know, Mag'har just has such a vibe to them. Like, you just can't help but love them. Mechagnomes. Mechagnomes, I think, are more interesting than normal gnomes. Normal gnomes are all right in some ways, but like Mechagnomes, like, they're just like a slightly upgraded, better version of gnomes. There's not much to say about them in terms of lore and storytelling. It's just, oh, it's gnomes, but they've attached robot parts to their bodies. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, at least you're kind of going with that whole like techno gizmo kind of vibe that like gnomes have. So I'm almost tempted to throw them in the B category next to Tauren. The only thing is that Mechagnomes are not as interesting or cool as Tauren. Not even like animatronic upgrades to their bodies can make them as cool as Tauren. So alas, I'm gonna throw them in the C category right next to their normal gnomish brothers. Night Elves. Night Elves are a race in World of Warcraft that you either absolutely love them or you think that they are so meh that you can't stand whenever they're on the screen. Really, your relationship with Night Elves depends on a few things. One, did you play Warcraft 3? Okay, if you played Warcraft 3, immediately your love for Night Elves goes up. And two, have you ever read any of the Warcraft books? Did you ever read the War of the Ancients book series, for example, back in the day? If the answer is yes, you probably like Night Elves. Like, if you're into like the deep lore of World of Warcraft, you probably like Night Elves because they kind of got their fingers in every cookie jar, except for all the crap that happened on Draenor. Like, Night Elves are always causing problems, and, you know, well, it's not just Night Elves, just elves in general, always causing problems. And yeah, at least for me, Night Elves are an S tier race in World of Warcraft. I think so. Next, we have the Nightborn Elves, who are just, at least in my opinion, uglier versions of Night Elves. Their lore is just, they were a bunch of Kaldorei from a long time ago that just walled themselves off for a little while. They popped back up in the Legion expansion, tried to join the Alliance, but Tyrande Whisperwind kind of gave them the finger. And so they joined the Horde because they thought Blood Elves were a bit cooler. And so the Horde just got uglier Night Elves. Other than that, I mean, what else is there to say about Nightborn? There's Suramar, where like a lot of them chill out at. Suramar, which was a giant lag fest back in Legion, for those of you guys that played it. Something was wrong with Suramar. Every time you turned your camera towards that city in Legion, your FPS dropped. Probably because it was just a big, massive, like, it is a very detailed city. Anyway, in my opinion, I don't think that Nightborn are really all that interesting. I think that if you're a big fan of like old elf lore and stuff, you're going to be a big fan of Night Elves. You're not really going to be a big fan of Nightborn. They're just a small part of the greater Night Elf story. In my opinion, these guys are kind of a D race. They're sort of like the Lightforged Draenei. It's like, if you're going to play one of the, like, if you're going to play a Lightforged Draenei, just play a Draenei. If you're going to play a Nightborn, just play a Night Elf. You know what I mean? Next, we have Orcs. Orcs are like humans. It's an S tier race, like immediately. It's one of the OG races of World of Warcraft. Like, so much lore, so much history to go into, so much tragedy, so many moments of victory and triumph. Like, Orcs are, I love Orcs in Warcraft lore. Immediate S tier race. Like, dude, I could make a whole video just talking about how awesome Orcs are, just like humans, dwarves, Night Elves. Like, anyway, next we have the Pandaren. When Mists of Pandaria came out as an expansion, or rather before it came out, a lot of people were making fun of Blizzard and making fun of the expansion, calling it Kung Fu Panda and stuff, and they were making fun of the cinematic intro when Blizzard unveiled it. And in my history with World of Warcraft, I felt like all those years ago that I was like one of the few people that was genuinely excited to play Mists of Pandaria. Because I liked the idea that the Horde and the Alliance, like their conflict, was coming to this peaceful land and was going to destroy it and rip it apart. And you have these people trying to maintain their tranquility and their culture, just like in the midst of this giant war. Ever since Mists of Pandaria ended, though, like, there really hasn't been anything to say about the Pandaren. Like, what are the Pandaren doing? What great things have they accomplished as a people? Like, they quite literally have just gone back to their stagnant, dull lifestyle of just meditation and making beer once the conflict on their island ended. And I think that's awesome. Like, I think that's perfect. You know, I actually like the fact that the Pandaren have not like had a presence in Warcraft's greater war and conflict and stuff, because the Pandaren don't give a damn about that, bro. Like, they're too busy making tea. They're too busy tending the garden, you know? And I actually like that like it's kind of on vibe for them to not be involved in all this BS conflict in the world. And anyway, like, you know, they'll get involved only if absolutely necessary. Like, in the future, Blizzard will do an expansion where the world it's quite seriously about to end. The bad guy is about to destroy everything. All the heroes of Azeroth are dead. And then suddenly, from out of the mists will come pandas. And they'll say, okay, now we think that things are serious enough that we're actually going to be a part of the lore again. Anyway, I think Pandaren, very controversial opinion. Boom. B tier. I think that Pandaren in Warcraft today are more interesting than Blood Elves and Draenei. Today, in Midnight, I would rather play as a Pandaren than a Blood Elf or a Draenei. And man, that is a complete... Back in Mists of Pandaria, bro, Pandaren would have been a lot lower, and these guys would have been S tier. And man, like, but today, you know, judging things based on today's lore and today's standards and today's vibe, this is where I'm putting them. Oh, I just realized something. I'm a complete idiot. And I know every comment's gonna say it. That's High Mountain Tauren. This is Tauren. Okay, I got them mixed up. I mean, they're both pretty much the same thing. High Mountain Tauren are just Tauren with big antlers, okay? Like, what else is there to say about them? They live in a high mountain, like, but they're awesome. But you know, Tauren, boom, they're in the B category. But yeah, everything that I would have said about Tauren, I would have said about High Mountain Tauren. If you like one, you like the other. They're pretty much the same damn thing. You know, the High Mountain is just another tribe of Tauren, and I'm all here for that. Trolls in World of Warcraft. Some people would immediately throw these guys into the S category. For me personally, I can't do that. I like trolls though. I really enjoy troll lore, and I love the fact that trolls keep popping up in like every other expansion in World of Warcraft. Like, trolls are just an awesome enemy to fight, and they're an awesome enemy to fight with. But they're not an S tier race, at least for me. They are an A tier race. And the only reason why I personally would put the trolls in the A category instead of the S, just because I'd rather play as one of these races instead of as a troll. Next, we have the Forsaken. The Forsaken are one of my favorite races in World of Warcraft, if not my favorite race in WoW. And it is a shame how the Forsaken have really dramatically changed over the years in their storytelling. Back in original vanilla WoW, the undead, the Forsaken of Lordaeron, they were just a people seeking to rebuild their destroyed civilization at the hands of the Scourge, very similar to the Blood Elves. The Forsaken were the only race in World of Warcraft that was unapologetically evil. Like, they were very cruel, they were wicked, they were sinister. I mean, even in their intro cinematic in vanilla WoW, it immediately establishes that the undead have no loyalty to the Horde and are just using them. And then when you go through the quest lines in Tirisfal Glades and Silverpine Forest and stuff, you quickly learned that the Forsaken and Sylvanas and stuff are making this new plague of undeath that they're going to unleash on all of Azeroth, that's going to kill the Scourge and the living and turn everybody into Forsaken just like them. There's a lot to be said about the Forsaken. I made a whole video over on my main Nixxiom channel with Tales of Warcraft talking about how Blizzard changed the Forsaken over the years from this very cruel and sinister and evil race to being like just a bunch of hurt, sad, melancholy, My Chemical Romance listening, depressed, like emo kids. And like, I don't know, like old Forsaken, or rather original Forsaken, are vastly more interesting than the Forsaken that we've gotten in the past few expansions in WoW. But I will not say that the Forsaken of modern World of Warcraft are not cool and are not interesting. I still very much enjoy them. Forsaken in OG vanilla WoW are an S tier race. In today's World of Warcraft though, they are an A tier race in my opinion. All of these guys have stayed S tier, but I think Forsaken over the years have fallen down into A tier, but not as far as Blood Elves. Void Elves are just Blood Elves, but they're slightly purple and they're obsessed with the Void. If you're a really big fan of Midnight and Xalatath and all that mumbo jumbo, then the Void Elves are going to be, you know, right up your alley. For me, I've never really found the Void and like, I guess the old gods and the Void Elves as a whole. I've never really been that interested in them. I've never really played a Shadow Priest, for example. Like, I'm just not I don't know, I'm not really a big fan of their aesthetic, but they're kind of cool. But I guess, like, I would rather play as a Void Elf than a Blood Elf, just because the Void Elves, I think, are a bit more interesting story-wise than the Blood Elves. I'll put these guys in the B category. I think that's good. Now we've arrived to Vulpera. There is really nothing to say about Vulpera. They are an F race. They are just a bunch of desert fox people that were just added as like just a little cute race back in Battle for Azeroth. They don't really have any lore. They've had no impact on the story since then. They're ugly. They look stupid. Like, they're just a dumb race. I don't like them. There's nothing else to say about them. I just don't like them. You know, they're small and furry and nasty. You know what I mean? Like, disgusting. But speaking of furry, now we got big, furry, handsome, and awesome. We're talking about the Worgen. The Worgen are cool. The Worgen have been cool all the way back to Cataclysm. You know, Gen Greymane and stuff. Like, Worgen have always had such an awesome aesthetic to them. They haven't really done too much in the lore recently. The most recent thing was somehow the Scarlet Crusade took over Gilneas, and we fought with the Worgen and the Gilneans to reclaim Gilneas, and then Gen Greymane then surrendered his throne to his daughter. It was his daughter, right? I don't remember. I have to look it up, but it was his daughter. I'm pretty sure. I'm 98% sure. But that's really it. Like, they really haven't done anything too significant recently, but nonetheless, like, I don't feel like their lore has been damaged or ruined in any way. I don't think that their aesthetic, like, nothing has been taken away from it. Like, I think Worgen are still just an A+ race in World of Warcraft. They're right there with the Forsaken, even in Midnight. They're just really cool. Zandalari trolls are just so cool. They're just as cool as their normal troll brethren. They have the added benefit of like all their interactions with the Loa and whatnot, with their racial, their upright look. They look strong and powerful and heroic. I have a Zandalari Shaman that I've been leveling, and they are just so much fun to play as. Although Battle for Azeroth was not really my most favorite WoW expansion, and I'm not really the biggest fan of like jungle stuff and whatever, like I just can't deny, like these guys are just awesome. Definitely an A race for me. Now we have the Earthen. The Earthen Dwarves allied race that was introduced in the War Within. Personally, I found them to be just kind of boring. I would much rather play as a Dark Iron Dwarf or an OG Dwarf over an Earthen Dwarf any day. I think a lot of people were disappointed that we just got another Dwarf race as an allied race in the War Within, and instead of something like unique and different. I don't think they look that cool. I mean, even with like the gems and stuff, like their story is just simple, like, the Titans gave us these edicts that we're supposed to follow, but we need to think for ourselves and go out into the wider world, and that's pretty much it. There's nothing else to say about them. I'm gonna put the Earthen in the D category. And last but not least, we have the Herenar, or the Herendar, or whatever. This is the new race that was added in World of Warcraft Midnight. Like, I both like them and don't like them at the same time. I like them because I do really enjoy their animations. I like their kind of Fern Gully avatar, you know, woodland realm aesthetic that people tend to tease them about. I think it's cool. Like their leaf looking armor transmogs and stuff. I like that. Their lore is kind of weak. Like the Herenar or Herenir or whatever zone in Midnight is the weakest part of Midnight. At least in my opinion, and apparently you guys too, because I've seen all the comments that you guys leave here on the videos. Like, it's a pretty weak zone compared to the other ones. But I have had fun, you know, playing as this new race after I unlocked them. Like, it's fun to play as a druid. They have some cool shapeshift forms, and playing as a shaman has been fun. And like, so it's like I both enjoy them and like don't enjoy them at the same time. This is purely going to be a question for me of like, would I rather play this race or a Goblin or Vulpera? This one. These guys or this one? These guys. Would I rather play these guys or these guys? Honestly, I'd rather play as a Herondar, Heronir, whatever. Like, I always forget, like, which one is it? Like, Heronir, Herondar, like, whatever. Like, I always forget which one. Anyway, yeah, I'd rather play as, I would prefer to play as these guys over one of these dudes. So I think this is gonna be, nah, I can't put it as a B tier race. This is gonna be a C tier race for me. Yeah, this is C tier. It's around like the same vibe that I'd have with Blood Elves and Draenei and stuff. And I think that's it. That's my list. I know that this is going to be a bit of a controversial one, but hopefully me giving my explanations for each one off the top of my head justifies some of my opinions. Some. Let me look at it. Anything that I might want to change? Anything that I was maybe a little unfair with? Man, I hate seeing the Forsaken in the A category. I want to throw them in S, but like, they're just not... Yeah, they're just not like... Yeah, they're not as cool as like they used to be, so I gotta give some points down. Keep in mind, all of this is from the perspective of Midnight, so I'm just kind of judging them overall. I think this is good. I think this is fine. But I appreciate you guys watching, and leave your comments down below. Like, you know, do you agree with my list? Do you agree with my thoughts? Or do you think that what I just said was some old booty? Let me know down below. Subscribe if you want, like the video if you want, and also if you have any other like tier list suggestions you'd like for me to do, just let me know down in the comment section. So, I'll see ya. Ladies and mostly gentlemen, today is a very special day. As requested by you all in my last tier list video, today we are going to be ranking all 13 World of Warcraft classes from S tier, meaning awesome, to F tier, meaning absolute garbage. You guys seem to really enjoy these tier list videos, and so we are just going to get started with the Death Knight. Now, I'm going to be judging, yes, these classes based on my personal opinion of them, but also I'm going to be judging them based on their overall lifespan throughout World of Warcraft's history. Some of these classes are newer than others, but just how they have evolved over the years. Are they still fun? Do I feel that they've degraded over time? What is their lore like? And so on and so forth. So let's just get started with the Death Knight. Now, if you've been watching me for a long time, even going back to the OG Nixxiom and Mukluk Machinimas, you know that Nixxiom is a Death Knight. So the Death Knight has kind of always been my iconic class, going all the way back to Wrath of the Lich King when it first came out all those years ago. Death Knight is a class that I feel that in some ways has lost a little bit of its charm, but not horribly so. If you were to ask me personally the question of, would you rather play a Wrath of the Lich King Death Knight or a Midnight Death Knight, I'm going to choose that Wrath of the Lich King Death Knight every single time. Just because I think that Wrath of the Lich King Death Knights were just a bit more fun. They were a bit more unpolished, a bit more chaotic, and I gotta admit, it was kind of badass being a Death Knight back in Wrath, and you could pull literally the entire zone of Hellfire Peninsula as soon as you got out of like the starting zone. You could pull the whole damn zone and nothing could kill you if you were a Blood Death Knight. I've always loved though how Blood Death Knight has kind of always maintained this reputation of the unkillable tank. Like, you cannot kill a Blood Death Knight. An Unholy Death Knight has always maintained this reputation of just the badass almost necromancer, you know, just like summoning all these undead and whatnot, but it's not quite the necromancer cloth, plague spreading, whatever class that maybe we all want deep down, but it's not exactly that robe wearing, plague spreading, kind of Necrophos from Dota 2 vibe kind of class that we've been looking for. But still, you know, Unholy's always been the almost necromancer. And then there's Frost. Yeah, it's Frost Death Knights. They're kind of cool, I guess. The Death Knight is just such a cool class. And over the years, I just don't think that they've lost a lot of their charm like other classes have, and we will get to them because I got some things to say about some of the classes here. I think that Death Knights over all these years have just remained an S tier class. I think they're fantastic and they're a ton of fun to play. And if you play as a Rider of the Apocalypse Death Knight, they're even more fun because you get to ride around, you know, mounted combat, and that's cool. Demon Hunters are a class that I have a love-hate relationship with, and let me explain to you what I mean by that. Years ago, before the Demon Hunter was released in the game, I used to make videos over on my main Nixxiom channel, and I would talk about how much I wanted to see the Demon Hunter put into WoW. And I would talk about how cool it would be, and like I would theory craft what sort of abilities they could have. And my goodness, like the amount of people that would leave comments saying things like, Blizzard is never going to put the Demon Hunter in WoW. A Demon Hunter is just a rogue. A Demon Hunter is just a warlock. There's no real difference between a Demon Hunter and like a rogue warlock combo. It's not unique enough. For years, I made videos talking about the Demon Hunter and how badly I wanted to see it. And for years, I just read all of these comments calling me an idiot. And then the Demon Hunter comes out and it's freaking awesome, except for one thing. And you know what that one thing is. For the longest time, the Demon Hunter only had 2 specs, a DPS and a tank spec. Now, for me personally, little bit of a controversial opinion here, I think that Demon Hunters should have been shipped with a 3rd spec, and it should have been ranged. We should have had another class in World of Warcraft that used bows and guns and crossbows and other ranged weapons, and it should have been the Demon Hunter. The Demon Hunter could have been using like magically imbued arrows and whatever to make like flaming walls of you know, arrow shot or whatever to deny terrain, almost like the mage's ice wall and stuff. I don't know. You run through it, you get like a burn dot put on you. The Demon Hunter actually using some ranged weapons, I think it would have been great, albeit not very traditional, and I do understand that argument, just because I think it's time we get another class in the game that can use bows and crossbows and guns and stuff, at least in my opinion. We did, however, get a 3rd Demon Hunter spec finally in World of Warcraft Midnight, and I've played around with it a little bit. It is a ranged Demon Hunter, and in my opinion, I think it's kind of boring to play. I mean, compared to the other 2 specs, I just think it's just way more interesting to play as like the other 2 specs rather than the Void Devourer, Demon Hunter, or whatever the hell it's called. Demon Hunters, I think, are a really, really good class in World of Warcraft, and I'm glad that Blizzard finally put them in the game. I hope one day that Blizzard puts Necromancers in the game, and you've seen them in my comment section. It's the same damn tune again. Every time I bring up the damn Necromancer, it's just a Death Knight. Like, it's just a warlock. Like, same damn comments, same shit that I dealt with the damn Demon Hunter. But anyway, Demon Hunter is a great class. They're a lot of fun to play. I enjoy them. I would not, however, put them as high as Death Knight, though. I would not. I wouldn't even necessarily put them in the A category. Demon Hunters, for me, are kind of like maybe like a B or a C tier class, more likely a B. And there is a temptation to put them a little bit lower just because I am personally not a big fan of the new spec, but all the mobility that Demon Hunters have and just, you know, they're just such a cool class to play. I can't put them any lower than a B. Now we have the Druid. I have a history with the Druid class, and let me explain. I've always loved the Druid as a class. I've always loved the lore and Malfurion and the Cenarian Circle and, you know, Fandral Staghelm. Like, I love Druids. I love their aesthetic. I love just their lore, their story. For years in this game, I roleplayed as a Druid. I even made machinima about the character that I roleplayed as. I love the Druid in D&D. Like, I'm probably one of the few people that actually likes playing a Druid in Dungeons & Dragons. I like Druids. But here's the thing, though. In World of Warcraft, for many, 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 many years, although I love the lore and the story and the roleplay and the enchantment, I never really liked the gameplay. I was never a big fan of shape-shifting. I was never a big fan of becoming a boomkin, even like the celestial form. I didn't really care too much for it. The Druid was just kind of Like, I'd rather just be a man of nature, you know, like a fungal druid in D&D, if you guys have ever played it. Just a man of nature, summoning insects and vines and stuff like that, not necessarily turning into animals left and right. That always kind of turned me off a little bit. And so for a long time, the druid was kind of like maybe a C tier or D tier class for me. Probably a C tier. But then something happened recently. When Classic TBC was on the horizon, I told myself that I was going to play something new. I was going to level up to 58 and go through the Dark Portal as a class that I don't normally play as. And I chose the Druid. And I chose not to play as a Balanced Druid or a Restoration Druid like I had done in the past. I chose to be a Feral Druid, something I always avoided, I admit. And as I leveled as a Feral Druid in TBC, I was just having a ton of fun. And then over on Midnight, I decided to main a druid for this expansion, and I was playing as a balanced druid, and I was having a ton of fun with that, and playing restoration on the side, healing dungeons and battlegrounds and stuff, and it was just a blast. Now, I've done druid healing in the past before, and druid healing has always been so much fun. So druids for me, recently, like probably in the past like year and a half, druids have grown on me a lot, like a lot. I wouldn't say they're as good as Death Knights, but I'm going to put druids in the A category. They are just an awesome class. Their utility is great. All their mobility is so much fun to play with. And bros, if you play a balanced druid in Midnight, like, let me tell you something. Like, do you want to play the class that just is nothing but a ton of crap on your screen constantly, like sparkling lights and blinking things and explosions and beams and whatever? You play a balanced druid in Midnight, bro. Like, your eyes, you'll have a seizure if you're not careful. And now we're going to talk about evokers. There are some people that really like the evoker class. One of my good friends is somebody that he mains an evoker, and he swears by them. He thinks that they're fantastic. Me personally, like, I've given the evoker a chance once or twice. I've played them. I've done dungeons, like leveled them up, and I just can't get into them. And I don't exactly know what it is specifically, but I think it's just the fact that I'm a dragon, like this little skinny dragon guy, instead of like a big, like, you know, draconic, you know, buff guy. Like I talked about it in my last tier list video. We were talking about the races, and I kind of got on the Drakthir a little bit. But the evoker, I don't know. I like the idea of playing as a dude that has the power of the dragon flights, but I feel like the evoker, at least for me, just kind of missed the mark with that. At least in my opinion, I think the class would be a lot more interesting and a lot more enjoyable for me personally if you could do everything that the evoker can already do, but in your human form instead of the dragon form, and you only assume the dragon form for certain things, like that flyover, like where they blow the fire down on the ground, that sort of stuff. Being permanently locked in like the mutant Komodo dragon like mode, I'm not the biggest fan of that. So evoker, I will say one thing though. Blizzard taking a shot with the augmentation evoker to make just like a full support class, like not necessarily healing, but like you're enhancing everybody's abilities around you, almost like a bard class in Lord of the Rings Online. That is cool. And I hope that Blizzard does more with something like that in the future. So for me, evokers, they're probably the lowest on the list for me. This is an F tier class, but if people really, really like them, I understand. They're just not a fun class for me. And now we have the Hunter. This is one of the saddest classes in modern World of Warcraft. There are two classes in this game that I think the passage of time absolutely ruined them, and the Hunter is one of them. Dude, classic WoW Hunter is so much fun. Holy crap. it doesn't matter how many times I level a hunter, like in Classic or TBC or Wrath. Hunter is a blast. I love getting the ammo. I love feeding the pets. I love like training them and giving them new abilities and whatnot. Like, I love all the different like hunter utility skills. Like, I love laying the traps. I love the eagle eye. I love the tracking for world PvP when I'm on a PvP realm. The hunter is so much freaking fun in Classic WoW. I love it. And in Modern WoW, it is so garbage. I cannot stand playing a hunter. It's like everything cool, everything immersive, everything like role-playing game about the hunter was just taken out over the years because it's just too much. It's too complicated. It's too whatever. It's like everything beautiful about the hunter is gone, and it's just nothing more than just a stupid ranged class now with a pet. Unless you decide to be a melee hunter, which, you know, that's cool, I guess. You know, you can be a dark ranger now as a hunter. I mean, that's kind of cool too, I suppose. But like, bro, hunters like in OG WoW blow modern hunters out of the water in my mind. Like, bro, I've tried to level a hunter recently just to get that dark ranger thing, and I can't even do it. This class is so boring. In Classic WoW, Hunter is S tier. 100% S tier class. Awesome. But today, like where they're at right now, I mean, for me, Hunter is a D tier class. I'd rather play Hunter than Evoker, but that is not saying much. It is not at all. And now we move on to the Mage. Remember when I said there are two classes that I feel like they just were ruined over the years? The Mage is another one. Now let me explain. Some of you guys might remember this. A long time ago, I made a WoW Machinima video called How to Mage. And in the video, Nixxiom takes this character, Tyler, the noob, on this journey into the past of Classic WoW. And he shows to him like the mage class and what it means to be a mage. And it's like, oh, you can crowd control all these mobs and dungeons, so people want you for all your, you know, your Frost Nova, your Sheeps, your Slows, and so on and so forth. You can teleport to major locations in the world, like cities and stuff. You can create portals for other people, you know, to go to Stormwind or go to Orgrimmar, Thunderbluff, whatever. People would tip you money for you to do that. You had these incredibly fun builds that you could create, like Presence of Mind, Pyroblast builds and such. I started World of Warcraft as a mage. When I finally got my own WoW account all those years ago, back in 2005, the mage was the class that I played. I was an undead mage for many, many years in this game, and I loved being a mage. And then I watched as the mage changed. And so the second half of that video I'm talking about, Nixxiom takes Tyler, the noob, to the present. And he shows him how, oh, there's portals everywhere now. So like the mage's portal stuff, it's gone. Mages getting tipped for like, you know, teleporting you here or there, it's over. Mages feeling unique because they can teleport to all these like places here, there, wherever. Who cares? Just go to the Stormwind portal room. It doesn't even matter. Crowd control in dungeons, it's non-existent. Even making food and water, like, you know, Blizzard recently created the whole recuperate thing. It's not even necessary anymore. Granted, it hasn't been necessary for a long time. But conjuring food and water, who cares? Mana gems, who cares? Everything that was cool about a mage, everything that made you feel like a badass when you played a mage, is gone. That video, How to Mage, was like my love letter to the OG mages of old, which is including myself. And just how we watched as our class just became just a spellcaster with nothing really special about them. They're still fun to play in PvP. I'll give you that. They can be a lot of fun. But man, mages as well in OG WoW, S tier class. I love them. Maybe A tier, S or A, one of those two, because there are classes that I think are better and more fun than mage, like the hunter, for example. But, you know, S or A. Right now, though, mages are probably just like, I don't think they're a C tier class. I'd probably put them at the same place as Demon Hunter. And the only thing that really saves them is just they're fun to play. They're fun to play in dungeons and in raids and in battlegrounds and stuff, but they're just not as good as they used to be. So for me, back in Classic WoW, bro, Mage is either an S or an A tier class. Probably an A tier because like there are classes like the Hunter, for example, that I think are a lot more fun to play in OG WoW than Mage. But today, I mean, I think the Mage is kind of like a C tier class. Like, it's a much more interesting ranged DPS than the Hunter, but it's less interesting to play than the Demon Hunter. So talk about a downgrade, but there is some enjoyment to be found in them. Like, I've enjoyed doing dungeons and stuff as a mage, but nowhere near as much as I did in Classic WoW. And now we arrive to the Monk. The Monk is a class that I've never really played that much of. But when I did play a Monk back in the day, I was a Mistweaver. I was always a healing Monk. I don't know what it is about the Monk, but whenever I like have played one, I've just always gravitated towards the healing role. And I've done DPS as well. But honestly, I'm kind of like the Evoker. I'm not really that qualified to comment too much on the Monk. I know it is one of the least played classes in all of WoW, and I think because Blizzard leaned a little too heavy into like the Pandaren aesthetic with the Monk. Like being a Forsaken Monk just feels weird. Like it's wrong. It just doesn't, I don't know, a Tauren Monk just doesn't feel right. Like the only class that seems to fit the Monk is the only race is the Pandaren. You know, like you have this Brewmaster Monk and stuff, and like this is all stuff that the Pandaren are known for. Like Tauren are not necessarily known for being Brewmasters. Like I think that Blizzard should kind of redo the Monk a little bit and just make them a hand-to-hand fighter, and that's it, and kind of get away from all the Pandaria aesthetic with it, and maybe the numbers of Monk players would go up. In my little experience playing Monk, though, and playing with Monks, I'm going to have to put them in the D category alongside the Hunter. Just not a very good class, and I think they have a lot of potential for, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Monks down the road. Now we have Paladin. Paladin is a class that it has undergone a lot of change over the years. When Paladin first came out, it was the auto attack class. Paladin was the class where you put on a seal, you started auto attacking, you alt tabbed, and you went and did something else while your Paladin killed the mob in front of you. Paladin was the class that you played if you wanted to play World of Warcraft and not play World of Warcraft at the same time. And over the years, Paladin got a lot of changes. In Wrath of the Lich King, Retribution Paladins were very, very strong for a while. That was a lot of fun, along with Arcane Mages, if you guys remember that. They are a lot of fun in PvP. I remember back in Cataclysm, I played a Paladin religiously, at least for a little while, and all I did was PvP. Like, I went through this phase where all I was doing was listening to like electronic bass music, like bass head and stuff, and I was just rocking Warsong Gulch as a Paladin, and it was so much fun. Even today, like when I play a Paladin, I still think they're a lot of fun, but there is a lot more charm to the Paladin in a way. Like the kind of the OG Paladin, like TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, especially Wrath Paladin. I think Wrath Paladin was a lot of fun, very immersive, and just such a cool class. I would probably put the Paladin today maybe in the same category as the Druid. It's a class that has undergone a lot of good changes, some bad here or there. I think they've lost a little bit of their aura in some ways, but I still think it's a very solid class, and I still think it's fun to play, and people love Paladins for a reason. And now we move on to the Priest. The Priest is, fun fact, probably my least played class in all these years of playing WoW. I don't really know why, but I just have never really been able to get into the priest. I've never leveled one up to max. I've tried both in, modern WoW and in classic, but I just think that they're just kind of dull. The closest or furthest I ever got is at one point I made a priest named Tom Aquinas. For those of you that'll understand that reference, I made a priest named Tom Aquinas, and I just kind of ran around and I was just wanding things to death in classic WoW. And I think I got to like in my high level 30s or 40s or something. And then I just got bored and burnt out and I just didn't really care anymore. I guess whenever I've played the priest, I've always just preferred to be a paladin. It's like, I don't want to cast holy magic at you. I want to beat you with a hammer infused with holy magic. I am a simple man. You know what I mean? And then when it came to like shadow stuff, like I was never a big fan of like the old gods and Lovecraftian horror stuff. That's never really been my jam. And so I don't know, but I will admit that whenever I have played a priest and when I've committed to being a healer in dungeons and battlegrounds and stuff, bro, that is where the priest, you just feel like an angel. You feel like Archangel Michael, bro, just like putting like power word shields on people, and everybody loves you. Everybody thanks you for like healing them and being there. And being a priest is a lot of fun if you decide to play the healing route. So I'll give it that. It is a class though that even if it is my least played class, it is an awesome class in WoW. I mean, even to this day, as I understand it, it is still one of the strongest and best and one of the most enjoyed classes in the game, even if it's not necessarily my cup of tea. For me, I'm going to throw the priest into the B category. And maybe if you're a main priest player, maybe you can make a comment on the state of priests today, because maybe something has happened with Midnight that has made them terrible. But from what I've seen, priests are still going strong, and that's cool. Next, we have the rogue, a class that I think as well has suffered a little bit of downgrade over the years, specifically with poison making. One of the great appeals to playing a rogue back in the day, at least for me, was always that level when you learned how to make poisons. There was just something enchanting about that. Being a rogue, stealthing around, making your own poisons and assassinating people. That was really cool. And rogues still use poisons and stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that you craft. It's not something that you make. And so I think that the rogues have lost a little bit of their enchantment over the years, but they are still a fun class. I will say that when Blizzard decided to go down the route with the rogue of being like, they started to put like a little bit of pirateness into the rogue, to make him like a pirate. I thought that was a little weird. But maybe that's just because for so many years, like I was used to the OG rogue, the assassin in the shadows. And so when Blizzard started to kind of do a little bit of that pirate thing with them, it just kind of felt odd, but it's still fun. Pirates are cool, so why not? Rogues, I think, even now, in my opinion, are an A tier class. I enjoy them. In OG WoW, I think they're fun. I'm currently leveling a rogue on hardcore classic WoW over on Twitch. If you guys want to watch me live, I like playing a rogue in modern WoW. Like, they're just a fun class to play. And now we have the shaman. The shaman, fun fact, was the second ever class I ever played in WoW. A little backstory about me. When I learned about World of Warcraft, I really wanted to play the game all those years ago, but I didn't have a good enough computer to play it. But my friend Ben did. And so I would go over to my friend Ben's house and I would watch him play WoW as his undead warlock. And then sometimes, not for very long, maybe like 30 minutes or so, he would let me get on his computer and I could make my own character. I also made an undead warlock, and I would run around and do some quests and explore the world a little bit, and then he would kick me off his computer and then he'd go back to playing. The first time that I got to properly play WoW, though, for more than just a couple of minutes, was actually at my grandparents' house, because when I was younger, my cousin was taking care of my grandparents for a little bit, and when she went to work each day, she would let me play WoW on her account. And so she'd log me in, and she told me to create a new character. She wouldn't let me play hers. And so I made a Tauren shaman, and I leveled him to level 18 over the course of a week, playing World of Warcraft for about 8 or 9 hours a day, depending on her work day. And that was a ton of fun. So the shaman and me have always had a very tight relationship because of that. But curiously, the shaman and me are kind of like the priest. Because although I love the shaman and I think they're cool, I've never actually really committed to getting a shaman all the way to level cap. I've certainly come very, very close, closer than the priest over all these years. But it's a very strange thing. It's like a contradiction in my mind, because it's like, I think the shaman is such a cool and awesome class, and yet I can just never finish them. I can never commit to them. And when I'm not playing them, I want to be playing them. And then when I am playing them, I just stop. And I don't really know why. I love Thrall as a character and Nabundo and stuff. Like, the shaman is just such a cool class, and I love the totems. And even today, like, you know, I made a Heronir shaman recently, and I've been leveling him up, and it's been really fun playing as this shaman and healing in dungeons and whatnot. Mostly the totems are healing everybody, to be fair. But shaman, you know, it has always been such a fun class. It's always been an enjoyable class for me. And at least in my opinion, I would put shaman in the A category. It is one of my favorite classes in World of Warcraft, even though, you know, I kind of have this weird relationship with it. And now we go to the Warlock. The Warlock is such an awesome class. I feel that it too has received a little bit of downgrades over the years in terms of its enchanting quality, its roleplay quality, and so on. But the Warlock is still a lot of fun to play, especially a demonology Warlock with all the demons you can summon and whatnot. But there was a really great charm in, you know, the immersion that you got, like an OG classic WoW, of going out and sucking out a dude's soul and then sacrificing it to a demon in the Twisting Nether to pull it forth into Azeroth to serve you. That was really cool. It's kind of sad that Warlocks lost that, but I understand, you know, it was inconvenient, you know, it took up bag space and stuff. So, I mean, I get it, but, you know, it is what it is. There's so much fun to level in OG WoW. They're fun to play in modern WoW. In my opinion, the Warlock is an S tier class. Hands down, S tier. And then we conclude with the Warrior. There is a lot to say about the Warrior class. In many ways, it's the most simple class in the game. It's just, do you have 2 one-handed weapons, a sword and a shield, a big 2-handed weapon? Nowadays, you could have 2 two-handed weapons, but it's a pretty simple class. It's just you and your steel and your wood, meaning a shield, against the world, you know? And the charm of the Warrior, even after all these years, has never been lost. The Warrior is so much fun to play in Classic. It has a bit of an odd reputation in Classic WoW. Like some people, they always talk about how broken the Warrior is. They always talk about how rage generation is so terrible early on, how frustrating the Warrior is, but nobody ever says that the Warrior is not fun. They're very enjoyable. Classic WoW hardcore, if you want to go on a fantastic adventure across Azeroth, play a Warrior and do hardcore. Even in the modern game, playing a Warrior is just awesome. You know, heroic leaping and charging everywhere. Bit of a controversial opinion. I think the Warrior is the best class in World of Warcraft. Like, hands down, it is above S tier. It's like S plus for me. Even in the modern game, I think it's S plus. Granted, I haven't been playing a Warrior in Midnight, but during the Dragonflight expansion, Warrior was my main. And I also played a little bit of Warrior in the War Within, but I mained Death Knight in that expansion, and now I'm maining Druid in Midnight, so you kind of see how I main different classes for each expansion. Anyway, Warrior, I love it. it genuinely is one of the best, if not the best class in World of Warcraft. It has such an awesome history with like its class quest weapons, and the lore is great. Garrosh is great. The warrior is just so much fun. I think that's it. I mean, looking over this list one more time, I mean, I'm very happy with it. I think that some people might get on me a bit for the shaman being on the A tier and you know, mage being so low. I think some people might get on me for that. Definitely hunter. There are people that they play hunter today and they absolutely love it. They love the modern hunter. They hate OG classic hunter. And honestly, bro, I don't get it. Like, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? But that's just me. You know, maybe I'm just too much of an old school player, but what can I say? Like, I love being immersed, you know, like I'm a LARPer, bro. Like, I just got back from a big ass LARP event, which is why there's like a sword and armor and stuff all stacked right there. I haven't even put my stuff away yet. So anyway, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this tier list. If you have suggestions for any other ones that you would like to see me do, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below and share your own S tier and F tier classes if you want. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I will see you soon. Recently, I put out a video here on the channel where I was playing World of Warcraft GeoGuessr for all of you guys, and you guys seem to really enjoy just watching me play a WoW-related game. And so, rather than playing GeoGuessr again, which I will play again if you guys want me to, I figured I'd do something a little bit different, and at the suggestion of a friend of mine, I decided to do a tier maker list. This is something I've never done before. I've never done a video like this, and I just thought it would be fun, it'd be different, and you guys would get to see where I rank things. Now today, we are doing classic WoW zones. I am more than happy to, you know, do the other expansions and whatnot, but we've got amazing, we've got great, good, mediocre, and bad, and of course we have all the, you know, the zones down below. So let us just dive right into it, shall we? And you guys can either agree with me or make fun of me down in the comment section. So, starting with the zone 1,000 Needles. This is a zone that, admittingly, I both look forward to and dread whenever I'm leveling in Classic WoW. On one hand, I look forward to it because you get the Shimmering Flats grind. That's where you get all the quests, like around like the rocket car racetracks or whatever. And it is a ton of quests, and it's a ton of grinding, and it's a ton of XP, and man, is it great for leveling. And I look forward to it every time. But the problem with 1,000 Needles, at least in my opinion, is the Shimmering Flats grind, because my goodness, it takes forever. It is visually dismal because you're looking at nothing. And the rest of the quests in 1,000 Needles, like they're good and they're enjoyable, but like, I don't know. I feel like 1,000 Needles it's not a bad zone by all means, but I definitely wouldn't say it's amazing. It's definitely not great. I'd probably put it in the good category. Probably good, I would say. Lots of good XP, but maybe not the most fun zone in the game. Next, we have the Alterac Mountains. The Alterac Mountains, at least in my opinion, is one of the most interesting zones in the Eastern Kingdoms, and I love that there's like so many quests in it that many people don't do, because it is a very out of the way zone in Classic WoW. Like, there's no flight path to it. The lore behind it, I think, is interesting. You know, it's the ruins of an old kingdom. But admittingly, like, there's very few quests. It's a lot of traveling, especially before you have a mount. And so it's definitely not amazing. It's not great. It is not a good zone. I do like tall, icy mountains. I wouldn't say it's bad. I would say it's mediocre as a zone. There are things about it that I enjoy and I look forward to, but it's definitely not that good of a zone. Arathi Highlands is just, in Classic WoW, it is the stereotypical run back and forth zone. I mean, most of the quests that are worth doing, it's just run from Hammerfall to Stromgarde, back to Hammerfall, a refugee point, back and forth you go. It's a pretty zone, don't get me wrong. Like, it's very nice, and the music is nice, the visuals are nice. I do like the underwater quests that are in like the one corner of the zone. It makes it kind of unique, I suppose. Arathi Highlands, though, it's never been a zone that I look forward to, at least in my opinion. So it's not amazing. I wouldn't say it's great. I could argue it's a good zone. In fact, you know what? I'm going to say it's good because I do like all the Stromgarde quests, you know, all those elite quests and stuff. Those are fun. We have Ashenvale next. I love Ashenvale. Ashenvale is just so wonderful as a zone. It is amazing to explore. The music is great. The visuals are great. I wish there was more quests in Ashenvale, admittingly. But like, you know, what quests there are a ton of fun. Like, it's fun to like quest on the Zoram Strand and to like gank Horde or Alliance, you know, whatever. It's fun to like do all the quests around like Splinter Tree Post or whatever it's called if you're a Horde player, or around Astronar. Ashenvale, in my opinion, is one of the best zones in Classic WoW, so I'm going to give it an amazing. Next, we have Azshara. I mean, Azshara looks awesome. It's a great looking zone. It's a zone that, like, I feel like more people, like, or I feel like it's a zone that many people haven't fully explored. But in terms of questing and leveling and stuff, Azshara, like, ain't nothing. It's an unfinished zone. I kind of want to throw it into mediocre, but honestly, you know, I feel like I'm sinning if I throw it in bad, because like, it's not a bad zone. Like, I like Azshara. It's just there's no reason to go there. Yeah, but then you do have the world boss. I'm gonna throw it in mediocre. I can't help it. I'm sorry. Badlands. Badlands is, in my opinion, like, I really don't like the Badlands. It is one of my least favorite zones in Classic WoW, but I do admit, if you are somebody that you like World PvP, like me, Badlands is awesome. There is always people grinding on them elementals. There's always people killing cougars. There's always people killing vultures. Badlands is great for World PvP. Dude, I was streaming over on Twitch, like, before TBC, like, came out, or right after it came out, actually. And I was leveling my druid through Badlands, and I was just killing people left and right in here. And admittingly, I was having a ton of fun. The quests, though, bro, if you're playing Badlands, like, on a PvE server, bro, like, you might as well be, like, scooping your eyeballs out with, like, a spoon. Like, it is so boring and so tedious, at least in my opinion. I'm gonna give Badlands bad. That's right. I think it's a bad zone. It's got a lot of quests, admittingly, but man, I almost feel like I should throw it in mediocre. I'm gonna throw it in mediocre, only for the PvP. Only for the PvP. Blasted Lands. I hate Blasted Lands. Blasted Lands is just immediately a bad zone. I just don't like. I've never enjoyed questing in Blasted Lands. The only quest that I think is like good in Blasted Lands is the one where you gotta go and like get the Demon Hunter from like Azshara and stuff. That's cool, but that quest takes forever. Other than that, the Blasted Lands is just dull. It's boring. It's empty. I don't like it. Next, we've got the Burning Steppes. The Burning Steppes as a zone, I really like the ambience of the Burning Steppes. I love the atmosphere of it, like the Dwarven choir, you know, almost gives me that like Mines of Moria feel from Fellowship of the Ring. Bro, oh my goodness, like just thinking about that, like I've seen Fellowship of the Ring so many times, like I can't even, but still to this day I get like enchanted at just the thought of like Moria and the dwarves and those scenes, man. And like Burning Steppes makes me like, I don't know, like there's something about it, like I just love it. The quests are very dull, you know, you're just kind of killing ogres, and I think it's like there's like those like fire spiders or something, or maybe it's the whelps, that's what it is, the whelps. The quests can be kind of dull, but admittingly, I kind of like Burning Steppes. Like, I'm gonna throw it in the good category, actually, because whenever I hit Burning Steppes in Classic WoW, like I'm actually really happy. Like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm almost there. I'm almost 60. Darkshore is a zone that you either like it, I love it. You either like it or man, do you hate it. So many people skip Darkshore because it is just dreary, depressing. The runs are long. The death runs are long. The quests are pretty good. You know, getting all them beached like sea animals and stuff, that's some easy XP. But like Darkshore can be a pain. I 100% agree. Still, it's not a bad zone. It's not a mediocre zone. You could argue it's good. In my opinion, though, I kind of think it's a great zone. And the reason why is, like, I kind of enjoy that dreariness of Darkshore. Like, you know, its name is Darkshore. So it's supposed to be kind of, you know, like it almost like I sort of have always treated Darkshore as like a rather depressing zone. Like it's, you know, like the corruption from Teldrassil has kind of spilled over like onto the shores, and maybe these once like wonderful forests and stuff, they're full of like, you know, plagued animals and satyr and naga and stuff. So admittingly, I think I'm gonna put Darkshore in great. I know that's gonna piss off some people. Oh, but okay, well, well, I'll get to it in a second. Deadwind Pass. There's no quests in Deadwind Pass in Classic WoW. It's literally you're judging it purely on visuals, because there's nothing to do in Deadwind Pass. So if we're judging it based on quests, it's a bad zone. In terms of like visuals and graphics and stuff, I would say like it's great. You know, it's fantastic. Deadwind Pass is just so creepy. Karazhan is awesome. You know, Karazhan Crypts is awesome. So good or mediocre. I mean, you know, I'm just gonna say mediocre. Like Blizzard should have put stuff to do there. You know what I mean? But man, if they put just a couple of quests in Deadwind Pass, like just like a dozen, like it would have been so awesome. Okay, so now here's the one that everyone's gonna be like, dude, people are gonna turn the video off on this one. Desolace. So I like Desolace as a zone. I am probably one of the few people that plays WoW that I actually enjoy Desolace, and I kind of look forward to getting to it each time I play it. I think for 99% of WoW players, they would take Desolace and throw it into the bed immediately. Now, I don't think it's an amazing zone. No way. It is not a great zone. But I do like the whole, like, choosing which Centaur faction to ally with, even though the rewards for doing so are just non-existent. I do like the troll village, like, on the beach. I do love the huge underwater Naga ruins in Desolace. I just love the fact that it's a destroyed land that feels so far away from civilization. Honestly, I know you're going to hate me for this. I'm going to put it in the good category. Yeah. Okay, we have Dunmoreau. Dunmoreau, I mean, it's probably, for many of you guys, it's probably your favorite zone. Dunmoreau is fantastic. The snowy mountains, the cozy hearth fires and stuff. Dunmoreau is one of World of Warcraft's best zones. And one of the things that I love about Dunmoreau in Classic WoW is actually the inaccessible like mountains above Ironforge. I think that all of that actually added to the charm of Dunmoreau. You know, just having those mountains and stuff, like, you know, in the airfield and the little hidden camps up there. Like, Blizzard didn't need to put in all that effort for all that stuff because it wasn't going to be used, but they did it anyway. It's just a place to find, and it's just a place to make the world feel more like a world. So Dunmoreau is definitely going in the amazing category. Next we have Durotar. Durotar is a it's again, it's either you really like it or you hate it. But the only reason why people don't like Durotar usually is just because of the graphics. Orange. If you like the color orange, you'll love Durotar. For me, I kind of like the color orange, I admit. And I do really like the quests in Durotar. I think the quests are really solid. It is nowhere near my favorite starting zone, though. But if you told me right now to make an orc or a troll character in Classic WoW and just start leveling one up, I would do it, and I would have a good time doing it. And ooh, it's kind of hard. Great or good? I'm gonna say great, because I would have more fun going through Durotar than I would Desolace. Duskwood. Okay. Easy answer. Duskwood is, again, one of World of Warcraft's best zones. It is fantastic. Especially if you're someone like me and you're a complete loser and you love Halloween and you love spooky stuff, and I love Duskwood. I love the verticality of Duskwood too, with the Raven Hill Cemetery and finding the laboratory underneath it. I love that. I love the diversity of like mobs to fight. It's not just undead, it's also worgen, it's ogres, it's spiders, it's wolves. I love the quests, you know, the more Latham quest line. I made a whole like video, like pretty much a movie about that over on my Tales of Warcraft YouTube channel, or my main Nixxiom channel. Duskwood is going into the amazing category. This is another one that I think many of you are not going to agree with me on, but Dustwallow Marsh is a zone that many people really don't like in the game. I really love it. I mean, I love the visuals of it, like the density of the swamp. I mean, it really feels like you're in a swamp. I like the quests, like fighting the Grim Totem tribes and the raptors and, you know, the goblins down in the south that have their little like base that they've built. Like doing world PvP in Dustwallow Marsh, dude, is so much fun, especially playing as a stealth class, like creeping through the swamp. Dustwallow Marsh, in my opinion, is honestly, like, it's a great zone, but it's not amazing. Like, man, is it close. Elwyn Forest, bro. Elwyn Forest is a great zone too. Like, for a lot of you guys, like, you'd probably immediately throw Elwyn Forest into amazing. For me, it's a great zone. Like, I love questing through Elwyn Forest, but you know, like if you were to ask me, like, oh, would you rather do Elwyn Forest or Duskwood? Duskwood. Dunmoreau or Elwyn Forest? Dunmoreau. Ashenvale or Elwyn? Ashenvale. Like, Elwyn Forest is great for me, but it's not amazing. But some of you guys, maybe you started as a human in World of Warcraft all those years ago. It's amazing for you, and I completely understand. Like, awesome zone. Eastern Plaguelands. How you feel about the Plaguelands honestly depends on how you feel about Warcraft 3. If you thought Warcraft 3 was an amazing game and Arthas is awesome and blah, 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 even though the Plaguelands are kind of booty in regards to quests and stuff, you probably have a special fondness for them in your heart. And that's kind of how I am. The Eastern Plaguelands, like the quests and stuff, like, in my opinion, whenever I level through the Plaguelands, especially Western Plaguelands in Classic WoW, it's like the enchantment is bigger than the gameplay. Like, you wish there were more quests. You wish there was more to do. So Eastern Plaguelands, like, honestly, in my opinion, like, I'm probably going to put this in, like, the mediocre tab, actually. It's not bad. I mean, I look forward to going through it, but it's just very meh. Fellwood. Fellwood is, again, how you feel about Fellwood depends on how you feel about Night Elves. If you don't care about Night Elves and you don't care about Night Elf culture, Fellwood is stupid and you probably can't stand it. I like Night Elves, but man, Fellwood has its terribly long runs. You're just going back and forth to the same places again. It's the Arathi Highlands vibe, dude. But like, Fellwood is somehow like more boring. And I don't know what it is about it. Maybe it's just like the visuals of Fellwood aren't as good as Arathi Highlands. There are some areas that are cool, don't get me wrong, like the Petrified Ancients and stuff. But Fellwood, honestly, I'm going to throw that into a mediocre tab as well. It's not bad, but I'd probably throw it in mediocre. Well, actually, you know, I really don't like Fellwood. I'm going to be honest. I'm throwing Fellwood down into the bad category. Next, we have Feralus. I am not a fan of Feralus. Some of you guys, you love Feralus, like you love the jungle, you think it's great. I just have never, I don't know, like there's just something about Feralus that I don't like. You know, it's just not as, it's not as cool of a zone as Ashenvale, and it doesn't have that like density that I crave from a thick jungle or a thick forest that a place like Dustwallow Marsh captures with its swamp. Feralus, I mean, even the quests are just kind of meh in Feralus. Like, there's nothing in Feralus that I look forward to whenever I get there. You know, honestly, I don't even really like Dire Maul, like, as a dungeon. Honestly, for me, I'm going to throw Feralus into the bad category. Some great visuals, though, in Feralus, but it's just kind of a boring zone, at least in my opinion. Hillsbrad Foothills. Hillsbrad Foothills, I have very fond memories, you know, Terran Mill versus South Shore battles, stuff like that. The quests, they're good. You know, they're okay. You know, if you're Alliance, and if you're Horde, you get to do all the Hillsbrad Fields quest, and those are a ton of fun. I would say that Hillsbrad Foothills is probably just, it's a great zone. You know, it's great for its quests, it's great for its visuals, it's great for its world PvP, I love it. Next we have the Hinterlands. Hinterlands is a zone that, like, do you like killing trolls? Yeah, you're gonna love the Hinterlands. Do you like the idea of hanging out with, like, the dwarves of Airy Peak? Yeah, then you're probably gonna like the Hinterlands, although you're probably gonna be like me and you're gonna wish that Airy Peak was bigger. I think that the Hinterlands is a good zone. I like the visuals of it. The quests are okay. I like the, like, elite troll area. I think it's fun, but it's a good zone. Loch Modan. Loch Modan is a gorgeous zone. I absolutely love it. The one big problem, though, with Loch Modan, it doesn't have enough quests. You have this huge zone. The majority of it is the loch, and you just wish that it had more quests. You wish that it had more things to do. It's still a good zone, though. Okay, now we have Moonglade. Moonglade, there's really nothing to say about it. The only reason to go there is if you're a druid. And honestly, even if you are a druid, like, Moonglade, I feel like Blizzard could have done a lot more with Moonglade to make it look more druidy. I mean, all they really did is they just threw in some trees, they put a blue filter on, and put a lake in front of, like, a bunch of, like, recolored Night Elf buildings, and they were like, well, here's the druid area. Like, I feel like they could have done a lot more with it. Moonglade has always been kind of disappointing for me as a zone, like, how it looks, even, like, the druid quests that you can do there. I wish that there was more to do. Like, I'm gonna say Moonglade is bad. Mulgore. This is where WoW Krendor, if he was watching this video, he's gonna turn it off. So I don't really like Mulgore. Some of you guys, man, like, there are people out there that they will religiously stand by Mulgore. I don't like Mulgore. I've never liked it. I find it very boring. It's just a big, empty, you know, rolling green field or valley, whatever. Like, and it's great, you know, don't get me wrong. Like, you know, I understand that, like, it's pretty for some people, but for me, it's just long runs. I don't really like playing as a Tauren because I always feel like I'm running so slow whenever I play a Tauren. But it's an okay zone, I guess. But at least for me, like, it's not bad, but it's very mediocre. I think that Mulgore is one of, like, the weakest WoW starting zones, at least in my opinion. Okay, so Red Ridge is a zone that I really enjoy the diversity of quests in Red Ridge. I like, you know, going down under the lake and collecting the stuff and fighting the Murlocs, and of course, fighting all the orcs. There's all the elite quests as well, so some great group content in there. I think Red Ridge Mountains, at least in my opinion, is a really great zone. I think it's well designed. I think it looks cool. You know, the bridge, the little, like, human town, like, it's probably one of WoW's better zones. And I think most people would either put it in the good or the great category. I'm going to put it in the great category. Yeah. Searing Gorge. So Searing Gorge, at least for me, is very similar to Thousand Needles, where the Searing Gorge, when you get there, you get all those quests at the whatchamacallit point, and it's just kill fire elementals and kill dark iron dwarves and kill, like, iron golems and kill these guys, and, like, it is just like a huge amount of kill quests, and there's a ton of XP in it, and it's great. And there's also, like, a ton of verticality to the zone because you have, like, the deep gorges and, like, the what do you call them, like the labor mines or whatever that are built, like, into the walls and stuff that are huge. Like they're incredibly expansive. Like you can get lost down there, like for if you're like a new player and you're playing through it for the first time. Like I know I just compared Thousand Needles and Searing Gorge. Like I wish that Thousand Needles invoked for me the same feeling that Searing Gorge does. I'm gonna say, at least in my opinion, that Searing Gorge is great. I think it's a great zone, at least in my opinion. Silithus. I hate Silithus, bro. I hate it in Classic WoW. I don't like the Encourage raid. I don't like bugs. Like, it's just, I mean, there's some like appeal to it. Like, don't get me wrong, but Silithus is just a nasty, ugly, like whatever zone. But there is some charm to it. Don't get me wrong. But like, there ain't nothing about Silithus that I look forward to. I'm throwing it in the bad category. Now we have Silverpine Forest. This is a zone that many people don't like. And it's not because the zone is boring. It's not because the zone is stupid or whatever. It's the fact that Silverpine Forest, it's a really cool zone, but man, does it lack in quests. And what quests that it has, it's sort of like you do a couple of quests when you go into Silverpine after finishing Tirisfal Glades, and then it's like the most logical thing to do after you finish those quests, or excuse me, you do like the 4 or 5 quests that you get upon going into Silverpine, and then suddenly you hit a wall. Like, oh, there's no more quests to do. And so the only thing that you can do is go back to the Barrens. And the thing is, like, the Barrens has like 10 trillion quests in it. And so by the time you level up once or twice and you unlock the rest of the Silverpine Forest quests, there's no reason to go back there because like the Barrens has like, there's so much more to do in the Barrens, you know? But for those of you that did do Silverpine Forest, for those of us that did it, Silverpine Forest is a great zone. Like, I love the visual storytelling of it. Shadowfang Keep is awesome. The quests can be a ton of fun. Like, I know that some people might throw this in the mediocre or good category, but for me, I'm going to throw it in the great category. Stone Talon Mountains. This is a zone that many people don't like. I personally really enjoy Stone Talon Mountains. I love the look of it. I love how it feels very far away from civilization, very similar to Desolus. I don't really like the quests though in Stone Talon Mountains. Like there are some that really stand out that are fun, but really, at least for me, Stone Talon Mountains is just like I mean, I'd probably put it in the same category as like Desolus. Like it's good, you know, but it's not great or amazing. Stranglethorn Vale is probably for many people their favorite zone in World of Warcraft. Let me actually move my thing down so you guys can see. There we go. Stranglethorn Vale for many people is their favorite zone in WoW. Like they love Stranglethorn Vale. They love the quests. They love the PvP. They just absolutely love STV. And I agree, man. STV is like, yes, there are things that I don't like about Stranglethorn Vale, but there is just so much to do in STV. There's so much like, you know, quest diversity and mob diversity, so much exploration to be had. Like, Stranglethorn Vale is one of WoW's most amazing zones, at least in my opinion. Swamp of Sorrows. The reason why it's called Swamp of Sorrows is because while you are playing through it, you are literally struggling with sorrow. It is a pretty boring zone. It's not the most boring zone in World of Warcraft, but man, is it meh. It is, like, I know that some of you guys are like, oh, you must really like it, Nixxiom, because it's like Dustwallow Marsh. It's a big swamp. Dustwallow Marsh is way more interesting than Swamp of Sorrows because Dustwallow Marsh doesn't have like this diarrhea like color tone on it. Dustwallow Marsh has Theramore, so it's like, yeah, you got the creepy, you know, ugly, dismal swamp, but you also have like the amazing like Theramore Fortress. Swamp of Sorrows don't got that. You know, Dustwallow Marsh had like, the Dustwallow Marsh is like a vastly better version of Swamp of Sorrows. I would say, like, I'm almost tempted to put it in the bad category, but I'm just going to put it in the mediocre category. Yeah. So, Tanaris. This as well is going to be a moment where WoW Krendor is going to be kind of angry at me. A lot of people really like Tanaris. People like WoW Krendor will stand by like it is one of the best zones in World of Warcraft. For me, I don't think it's that great. There are many things that I do like about Tanaris, but like, I mean, what is Tanaris? It's just like killing the dudes for their wastewater sacks, killing some pirates, and helping a turtle walk across the entire zone. What else is there to say about this zone? It's just a big empty wasteland, and there's some great visual storytelling in it. But I would just say that Tanaris is just a good zone. Yeah, it's just good. You guys can't see the amazing thing anymore. Let's see if I can fix that. And you'll just have to, I know you can't see the next zone, but you know, we'll just, I'll tell you what it is. Okay, so the next zone is Teldrassil. Teldrassil is a zone that if you played a Night Elf, of course it's going to have fond memories for you, especially if you really enjoy Night Elves like me. Teldrassil is a zone that I have played through so many times in my 22 years or however long playing this game. 21 years, actually, I've been playing this game. Anytime I've ever had like a lady friend that has wanted to play World of Warcraft with me, and I'm like, oh, you want to play WoW? They want to play Night Elves, and we want to go through Teldrassil. So many times, man. So many times. So many times I've leveled, you know, Night Elves in hardcore WoW in Teldrassil. So many times have I just made different Night Elves going through Teldrassil. Teldrassil. I've dreamed about Teldrassil. Is it an amazing zone? No, I don't think it's amazing. Is it a great zone? I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, I like the reveal that you're on a giant tree. I kind of have to think back to those days when I was younger. For me, it's kind of a debate between good and great, admittingly. Like, yes, I'm a huge Night Elf fan, but I mean, honestly, the thing that's going to make me put it in the great category is the tree reveal and also the Relics of Awakening quest line. I really love the Relics of Awakening quest line because it's one of those moments when you're playing WoW where, you know, if you're new to the game, you're questing along, everything is great, and then you hit the Relics of Awakening quest line and you're like, bro, how the heck am I supposed to do this by myself? And it's one of those like quests that just kind of naturally introduce you to group gameplay in the MMO, even though it's not even like a group quest. So it's just like the Tirisfal Glades Agaman Mills Family Crypt quest line. Like, anyway. Okay, next we got the Barrens. The Barrens, like, it's a huge zone. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it is the biggest zone in Classic WoW. It's got so many quests in it. It is iconic. It is the most iconic zone in all of Classic WoW. I don't know what to say. I love the Wailing Caverns, like, dungeon entrance, you know, questing through, or not even questing, but just making your way through there with a group, killing the raptors and the slimes and stuff. Wailing Caverns is an awesome dungeon. The Barrens is amazing. It's an amazing zone. I love it. Tirisfal Glades, again, at least in my opinion, Tirisfal Glades is, I think, one of the most amazing starting zones in Classic WoW. But if you've never played Warcraft 3 before, or you don't like Warcraft 3, I can understand why you wouldn't like Tirisfal Glades. For me, I have played through Tirisfal Glades more times than I've played through Teldrassil, just by me playing on my own. Tirisfal Glades is so much fun. I love the lore behind it. I love the ambience behind it. It is always enjoyable to go through Tirisfal Glades as a Forsaken, or just, you know, as another race that you've run over there to go through Tirisfal Glades. For me, Tirisfal Glades amazing. It is amazing. Ungoro Crater. I hate Ungoro Crater. Like, I think it's cool, like, from a visual standpoint. You know, it's a big crater with dinosaurs. I mean, like, what young guy doesn't like the idea of going into a giant crater filled with dinosaurs? But man, do I not like the quests. Like, there is nothing about Ungoro Crater that I look forward to. I mean, well, I guess the only thing that I think is fun about Ungoro Crater is watching out for the big elite T-Rexes. That's fun. You know, it's kind of like dodging the Fell Reavers in Hellfire Peninsula. That is fun. But Ungoro Crater, honestly, it's a mediocre zone, at least for me. Okay, next we have Westfall. Many people, they would say that Westfall is amazing. They would say it's one of the best zones in WoW. And honestly, I'm kind of in that same ballpark. There's a ton of quests to do. You have the Dead Mines instance, which is a ton of fun. The Defias Pillager, you know, is going to completely wreck you if you're not careful. Westfall is just a really fun zone to go through. It is not my favorite, like, level 12-ish plus zone, I would say. Like, I'd in my opinion, I'd rather go to Loch Medan than Westfall, admittingly, but then you run out of quests in Loch Medan, so you just end up in Westfall, you know what I mean? But Westfall is amazing. I really enjoy it. Okay, next we have the Wetlands. The Wetlands, again, it is just a swamp. It's nowhere near as good as Dustwallow Marsh. In my opinion, I think it's even a downgrade from Swamp of Sorrows. But admittingly, there are some really good quests in the Wetlands, at least in my opinion. Killing the Murlocs and killing the ghosts of the shipwrecked sailors, that's fun. Killing crocodiles, you got raptors, you're fighting orcs, like, there's a lot going on in the Wetlands in terms of, like, I guess, quest variety and stuff. But it is kind of a boring zone. I would say, like, Wetlands, it's a debate between good or mediocre. Let me look at the mediocre zones. Badlands. Yeah, I'd rather go to Wetlands than, like, all these zones. So I'm going to put it in the good territory. So now we have Winter Spring. I'm not the biggest fan of Winter Spring, I admit. Some people lose their minds over Winter Spring about how great it is, how amazing it is. Me, I love snowy zones. I think snowy zones are great, but I just never have been able to, like, really click with Winter Spring. Winter Spring for me has just always been a good zone, but it's never been great or amazing like some people would say. And then last but not least, we have the Western Plaguelands. Western Plaguelands, ladies and gentlemen. So I mentioned earlier with the Eastern Plaguelands that when you finally reach high enough level to go to the Plaguelands, you know, you're a big fan of Warcraft 3, you can't wait to walk in the footsteps of Arthas, and you reach the Western Plaguelands because it's the lower level of the two zones, there's really not that much to do. Like, there's some quests, but it's just, like, you want there to be more. But the one thing that's really cool about Western Plaguelands is Scholomance. Like, I really can't stress how amazing Scholomance is. Just as a dungeon, the ambience around it, the quests that lead up to it. Western Plaguelands is, like, you want there to be more quests, but, like, it's still, at least in my opinion, I think it's a great zone. I genuinely think it's great. And that's it, everybody. That is my my tier list. Ashenvale, Dunmoreau, Duskwood, STV, the Barrens, Tirisfal, and Westfall are my amazings. Okay. And then my bads are Blasted Lands, Fellwood, Feralus, Moonglade, and Silithus. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I know that I'm gonna cause some comments. You know, with that Feralus right there and that Mulgore. Like, I know some people are gonna get really pissed off at me, but that's my tier list, everybody. If you'd like for me to do more tier lists like this, just let me know down in the comment section below, and maybe I'll even do some of these live over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Nixxiom. But thank you for watching, everybody. And yeah, and if you want, I'll also play more WoW GeoGuessr. Just let me know down in the comment section below, and I hope you enjoyed. This is a tier list video that I've been looking forward to doing for you guys for quite a while now. Today, we are ranking all the World of Warcraft expansions from S tier, meaning absolutely awesome, to F tier, meaning absolute garbage. This particular tier list, like website, whatever, has The Last Titan for some reason on here. We're just going to pretend that doesn't exist. And yeah, you guys seem to really enjoy my stories. So what I'm hoping to do with this video is maybe share with you guys some of my stories from each of the WoW expansions, since I've been playing this game for so long, and maybe that will, I guess, demonstrate to you guys why I'm ranking the expansions in the way that I'm ranking them. I do have a lot of stories, though, from every expansion, so I'm gonna have to be a little selective, but let's just start things out, ladies and gentlemen, with the original vanilla World of Warcraft, going all the way back to 2004. So a little bit of history about me as a person, if you guys don't know this. So I got started playing this game not when it first came out, but about a year after the game got started. So I got started somewhere in 2005. not exactly sure when. And, you know, taking you guys back, like, I had never played a Warcraft game before. I didn't even know what Warcraft was. I had never even heard of it because I was primarily a console gamer at the time, and I played a little bit of PC games like, you know, Age of Empires 2 and Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds and whatnot. I'm actually not sure if those came out before or after Classic WoW. I'd have to Google it. But, you know, I did play like PC games, but they were usually strategy games like that. You know, I never played StarCraft or Warcraft or whatever. But one day, without going into like my full story, because I've done it in other videos, one day my cousin came over and she played World of Warcraft and she told me about MMORPGs. You can make like a character and there's like this whole world that existed within the computer, and you could, you know, play with people from all around the world and stuff. And as I was being shown like all the races and classes that you could play as, it was mind-blowing. I had never seen anything like this before. And so anyway, I begged my parents to get a good enough computer so that one day I could play World of Warcraft. I was begging for quite a while, but finally one day, my dad and me, we went down to Circuit City, back when that used to be a thing. I don't even know if Circuit City still exists. But we went down to Circuit City, and my dad got a okay-ish computer, a computer that could run WoW at the lowest settings back in 2005, got my account, set it up, and I played it. My time back in OG Vanilla WoW was a time of just an incredible amount of enchantment for me. Like, this was the time in my life where I was becoming a fan of fantasy. I was reading The Lord of the Rings for the first time during this period of my life, The Hobbit, and I was watching all these fantastical movies during these years. And like, it was just like the enchantment of fantasy was just working on me very, very intensely. And World of Warcraft only added to that because my first character on my original account was an undead mage. And as I was questing through the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and I was learning about the world and stuff, it just was like it was mind-boggling to me. Just like the fact that there was this world inside of this computer and it had its own lore and history and politics and major players and stuff. And I just, like, I absolutely loved it. Like, all I cared about was like, you know, what's going to happen next with the Forsaken? Like, are they going to get their revenge against this Lich King fella? Like, I didn't know really who that was, but, you know, what's going to happen with Sylvanas and what's going to happen to the Horde? You know, when are the Forsaken going to betray these guys and stuff? And I was just so immersed into it. Like, all my memories from OG WoW is just like being completely intoxicated by the story and the characters of the game, meeting other people who they had never played a Warcraft game either, and so they were really into it. And, you know, I just fell deep in love with not only the game, but the community as well. And my addiction began, ladies and gentlemen, because it is 2026. It has been 21 years since those days, and I'm still playing World of Warcraft because this game absolutely changed my life. And I think as I go through each expansion, you will see why. In terms of where I would rank original World of Warcraft, the vanilla WoW experience, this is 100% S tier World of Warcraft. It is WoW at its absolute best. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And then we are going to the Burning Crusade. So here's the thing about TBC. Back in the day when Burning Crusade came out, or around the time that it came out, I'm trying to remember, you know, what came first, because either TBC came out or maybe just before it came out, I played Warcraft 3 for the first time because, like, I was so, like, immersed into this world, and like all the various factions and enemies and allies of it, that it's like I wanted to understand it more. You know, it's like when you fall in love with something, or someone, you just want to like learn more about it. You want to consume everything you can about it. So, in Burning Crusade at, some point, either just before it or maybe after it came out, I played Warcraft 3 for the first time. And now finally I understood, like, who is the Burning Legion and who is the Scourge and who's the Lich King. And I had ideas of this stuff from playing Vanilla WoW, but I didn't really have like a complete picture because I wasn't like going through the game reading every quest text. I was more so the guy going through the world looking at every tree, if that makes sense. Not reading everything. But TBC is where I played Warcraft 3 and I really got into the lore. This is when I started getting my parents to buy me the Warcraft books, and I loved it. The one thing I'll say about TBC though is that in terms of its theme, I suppose, I wasn't really the biggest fan of the Burning Crusade. When I was playing through, Outland and stuff in Warcraft 3, I wasn't the biggest fan of Outland. I wasn't really the biggest fan of Illidan as a character. I much preferred the Scourge and the Lich King and all that stuff. And I liked the Burning Legion, but I just wasn't like all the Outland stuff in Warcraft 3. I just kind of was like, I'd rather get back on Azeroth. That's, the mindset that I was in at the time. And so when TBC came out, like TBC has this big sort of space vibe. It kind of steps into sci-fi, quite a lot in this expansion. And it combines like old school fantasy with sci-fi. Like, World of Warcraft is very unique in its fantasy setting because it's such a big mix of many different, like many different universes and genres, like all just kind of stitched together. And, I mentioned a minute ago that like this is kind of around the time, like these years of my life, I was really getting into like Lord of the Rings and stuff and reading Beowulf. And this is kind of around the time period where, my kind of like my very early love of history as well, like mythology and folklore was kind of popping up. So I preferred like sword and sorcery fantasy. I wasn't really the biggest fan of like spaceships and outer space and, the cosmic stuff that TBC was offering. The one thing that I loved about TBC though was that TBC like had just such fantastic gameplay. I had so much fun in Burning Crusade just being a PvP player because all throughout OG original like Vanilla WoW, I was just all about the world PvP, putting the war in Warcraft. And in TBC, I was this huge battleground PvPer. I was doing battlegrounds left and right, dude. And at one point, I also had the opportunity to become a raider for the first time. I didn't raid in original Vanilla WoW, fun fact. I didn't even get to level 60 before TBC came out. That's a whole story though, but I got to raid Karazhan and Gruul's Lair and stuff, and that was so much fun. And so like TBC is like, despite the fact I wasn't the biggest fan of like the theme and like the outer space stuff and Outland and, fell orcs and stuff, despite that, TBC is where like I truly appreciated just WoW as a game, I suppose. TBC is when I started reading the WoW books. It's when I raided for the first time. I was really big into like the PvP. Like it's when at some point, like I played Warcraft 3, like TBC is like where my love of World of Warcraft was just so solidified. And even if I wasn't like the biggest fan of like the themes or whatever, or like the visuals and the locations and whatnot, like TBC was just such an incredible expansion for that reason. And, like even today, like I can go back and I can quest through Azure Mist Isle, which I actually did recently when TBC Anniversary came out. Like, and I can have so much fun doing that. And, Eversong Woods is awesome. And TBC has just such a vibe to it. But, I admit, if you had asked me what I thought of Burning Crusade all those years ago compared to original World of Warcraft, I probably would have put TBC as like a B category expansion. But looking back at it, I mean, all these years later, I feel like I would be committing a sin against myself if I didn't put it in the S category for just everything that this expansion did for me. And also, now that I think about it, TBC is also when I got into World of Warcraft machinima for the first time. It was in TBC that I started watching Oxhorn and Martin Falk and Olabith and Baron Sustin and all these like WoW machinima guys, like Firebolt and X-Cross Pictures, like all these machinima dudes. And I started consuming their content like crazy. And I was just a huge fan of WoW machinima because, you know, I always wanted to be a filmmaker when I was a kid. I always wanted to run away to California and go make movies. And I couldn't do that. You know, I live in North Carolina, so exact opposite side of the United States. So I couldn't do that. But like the idea of like taking like my love of film and my love of WoW and kind of combining those two things, like well, let's just talk about Wrath of the Lich King, because Wrath of the Lich King is where I got into making WoW machinima. Wrath of the Lich King is an expansion that I absolutely love for its theme, its vibe, and its overall story. I love the fact that, you know, you have this war against the undead scourge, and every time one of your dudes dies, you better burn that body really fast, otherwise the necromancers of the Cult of the Damned are going to bring your dude back to life, and he's going to be fighting, you know, on the enemy army. Like, I thought that, like, the war against the Lich King was the coolest war in World of Warcraft that World of Warcraft has ever done. Like, the Northrend was absolutely beautiful. It was hauntingly beautiful. I loved Warcraft, or excuse me, I loved Northrend from like Warcraft 3 and stuff. Like the music and like the atmosphere of it. Northrend, whether it's Warcraft 3 or World of Warcraft, has such like a creepy vibe to it. And like I think that Blizzard captured that so well in the MMO. But Wrath of the Lich King is where I became like, I wasn't just a fan of making WoW machinima anymore. Like my love of the world and the lore and the stories and everything had deepened so much that I actually started making machinima myself. I was so inspired by websites like, you guys might not remember this, but a long time ago, Oxhorn was making WoW machinima, and he was like the WoW machinima guy, because he was the one releasing content sort of the most consistently all this time ago. And at some point, I don't remember all the details, but I think he got hired by this website called WeGame to make World of Warcraft machinima every month or whatever for WeGame.com. And that brought a ton of people onto that website, including me. I remember like the Oxhorn and Gort, I think his name was, like their weekly chats or updates or whatever about WeGame. And I remember watching all of Oxhorn's videos, and then WeGame started doing like these machinima contests and stuff. And I got involved with all that, even though I was a completely terribly amateur WoW machinima guy at the time. Like I had been dabbling in it since Burning Crusade, but man, I was completely garbage at it. But yeah, like Wrath of the Lich King is where like my machinima career began in World of Warcraft. And it was just taking the characters that I had made through role-playing in World of Warcraft. I didn't even mention that. And I was just putting them onto film. And I was, you know, creating these like stories and skits and stuff for just me and, you know, for my role-playing friends. And yeah, a little side note about role-playing. It was actually in TBC that I got into role-playing. And I've talked about my terrifying first role-play experiences in TBC on other videos. I was, let's just say that my first roleplay experience, for those that don't know it, without me going into the whole story again with this video, you guys know what ERP is? Well, I accidentally stumbled into an erotic roleplay situation, and that was my first ever exposure, or sort of first ever exposure to roleplay. It's a whole story. I talked about it in another video here on Nixxiom Talks, and I'll link it in like the like at the end of this video if you want to check it out. But anyway, I was like I was into roleplay, yeah, like in Burning Crusade. Like that's when I got into it. And in Wrath of the Lich King, I got really into it. So I have done everything in WoW, like, ladies and gentlemen. Like, I have done everything. I mean, I have raided, I've PvP'd, I've roleplayed, I've made a damn YouTube channel about World of Warcraft, I've been to BlizzCon, like, I've done it all. Like, I am completely well-rounded, like, as a WoW player. I've touched all corners, but anyway, what do I think about Wrath of the Lich King in terms of where I would rate it? Man, there's so many more stories I want to tell about Wrath. Actually, the only other thing I'm going to say about Wrath of the Lich King is, I'm just going to say this. I loved Arthas Menethil so much as a character all throughout early WoW. Ever since I played Warcraft 3, dude, I loved Arthas. I thought he was the coolest dude ever. And when Blizzard said that they were going to kill him in Wrath of the Lich King, he was going to be a killable raid boss, dude, my younger self, I lost my mind. I was so angry. It was the first time where I was genuinely angry at Blizzard Entertainment. Because it's like, bro, like, you established in the lore, like in the RPG books and all this stuff, like, that the Lich King is like an unkillable deity. Like the Helm of Domination, because of like the magic that it's imbued by like the agents of the Burning Legion, the Helm of Domination makes the Lich King immune to like all magical forms of harm. And his armor, which is made of like pure serenite and whatnot, like makes him immune to like all physical harm and whatnot, unless like there's an area where his skin is exposed or whatever, but he's undead. So like the Lich King is like, I had this impression in my mind that the Lich King was like this unkillable like god. And so I was like, oh, how is Blizzard gonna do this? How are they gonna defeat him? Are they gonna have to steal him away or whatever? And then he just died, you know, at the Icecrown Citadel raid. I was so pissed that all those years ago, I refused to step in Icecrown Citadel. I never did it. Like, I was like, I will not support this raid. I will not support the death of the Lich King. Blizzard are a bunch of idiots. Like, genuinely the first time I was angry at Blizzard. But Wrath of the Lich King's lore was very questionable in a lot of areas. Like, Wrath was awesome, don't get me wrong, but some of the decisions that they made, like, in Wrath's lore was pretty garbage, at least in my opinion. But that is a whole topic for another time. Anyway, where would I rank Wrath of the Lich King in terms of, you know, S to F? There's a part of me that wants to put it in the A category. And the reason why is because although the gameplay was fun, and making WoW Machinima was fun, and doing stuff on Wii Game was fun, and like the community was really awesome during this time, you know, all those lore frustrations that I remember during those days, like kind of soured the expansion for me a little bit. Nowadays, I'm a little bit more chill, like, I suppose. Like, you know, I can play Wrath of the Lich King today and, like, or, well, like, when Wrath was re-released, when Classic came back out again after 2019, I can play Wrath of the Lich King again and just really enjoy it and not be so, like, you know, not have a toothpick in my anus about, like, Arthas and how Blizzard treated him. Because it's like, people wanted to kill the Lich King, I guess. But anyway, I think Blizzard could have done some more creative things. But anyway, there's a part of me that wants to put it in the A category for that reason. But there is no way that I could ever put Wrath of the Lich King beneath Burning Crusade. Because for me, it's like, okay, so here's the S category. But for me, like, vanilla WoW is on top. Like, OG vanilla WoW. Then we have Wrath of the Lich King, and then we have TBC. But they're all S tier. But it's like, if you were to ask me the order that I would want to play them, it would be that order. So, but all S tier expansions. And now we move to Cataclysm. Cataclysm was an expansion that before it came out, I was very hyped for it. I loved the premise of it. I loved the idea of Deathwing completely changing the old world. I was excited for it. New quests, new ways to go back and to, like, you know, appreciate, I guess, Kalimdor and Eastern Kingdoms all over again. Cataclysm looked awesome. And it looked like a step up from Wrath of the Lich King. I was very excited for it. I remember, like, going to my friends' houses and stuff, and we were talking about Cataclysm and all the class changes that they were doing, and they were bringing flying mounts to, like, OG Azeroth and stuff, and we were hyped, bro. Like, we were doing LAN parties when Cataclysm came out. But for me, Cataclysm is remembered primarily as the role-playing expansion for me. It's kind of like Cataclysm and Mists of Pandaria, or at least like the first half of Mists of Pandaria. These are like the role-playing expansions for me, because Cataclysm especially, like, is when I got deep into role-playing in World of Warcraft. Like, I had been a PvPer and I had done my raiding and everything, and I was just having so much fun with the role-playing side of the game that I just no-lifed role-playing in Cataclysm after a while. I never did a single raid in Cataclysm. I barely touched Battlegrounds in Cataclysm. Like, what was like the sort of winter grasp of Cataclysm? Tol Barad, I think it was. I think in the entire expansion, I think I did that once. Instead, I was just a no-life role player, and I was role-playing as Nixxiom, you know, the Machinima character Nixxiom that many of you guys know me by, and also his son, Ashvin, the druid. Mostly Ashvin. By the time Cataclysm was, like, really underway, like, I was role-playing Ashvin 100%, and I was really enjoying my druid roleplay. And during this time as well, like, Cataclysm is not just the roleplay expansion, but Cataclysm is also kind of like the period of my life where, like, this is a long story, but, like, in order to be a better druid role player, I actually, like, got the idea of starting to study actual druidism. Like, what did druids back in the day actually believe? What was their theology? What was their, like, philosophy on life and stuff? So I started kind of studying that, and, like, I'm not a druid, you know, in real life, but I just was looking into these sort of things. And that, like, Cataclysm is also the time of my life where, like I mentioned earlier in the video, that I had this love of history that was growing over the years, this love of myth and folklore and stuff. And Cataclysm is, like, I don't remember, like, how old I was at the time, but I think Cataclysm was around the period of my life where I started to make the decision that I wanted to be a history teacher one day, and I really wanted to focus on the study and the writing on of pre-Christian European religions. And because I just found it all so fascinating, because I had also been to, like, Sweden, I think, at this point in my life in Cataclysm, or maybe it was in Mists, but it was near the end of Cataclysm. You know, I was, like, traveling over to Europe, like, on my own to challenge myself and stuff. And, you know, I was learning a lot as I was, like, going around the world and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, like, you know, I was just becoming, like, this big history guy, this big dude into role playing. You know, I became a much more serious writer during this time. You know, writing became a big hobby of mine. I'm actually working on my first novel right now. I'm going to talk about that in another video here soon on Nixxiom Talks, because it's going tremendously well. I'm actually almost done with the entire rough draft of the book. But anyway, so Cataclysm was just Cataclysm is like the big creative expansion for me. Like, it was not an expansion that was great in terms of gameplay. It was not an expansion that was great in terms of, like, the story and whatever, because I thought the Cataclysm story was very, like, I just didn't care. The Cataclysm is also where I fell out of love with World of Warcraft lore. It was mostly because of the death of the Lich King, but I remember reading the book The Shattering at the beginning of Cataclysm, and after that I was like, I'm done. I'm not reading any more Warcraft lore. I don't care anymore. For me personally, in my World of Warcraft experience, I would probably put Cataclysm in the B category. I mean, looking back, it wasn't a very good expansion. It wasn't a good time in WoW's history. But at least in my personal experience, Cataclysm was great. And now we move to Mists of Pandaria. I remember I was in Sweden when Mists of Pandaria's cinematic trailer was posted online. And I remember watching the Mists of Pandaria cinematic with my friend over there. And at the end of it, she absolutely hated it. She thought it was so corny, so stupid. And I thought it was awesome. I actually really loved the premise of Mists of Pandaria. I didn't really like all the Chinese stuff. I've never, fun fact about me, I have never been enchanted by the Mystic East in my whole life. You know, the Shaolin monks and the Sakura blossoms and Mount Fuji and ninjas and, the Mystic East that seems to capture so many people in their lives at some point. I never really cared. I always liked knights and dragons and, Beowulf and Siegfried and Fafnir. I was always into that, as a kid. And so, all the Eastern stuff was just weird to me. It was weird and foreign and strange. And I was like, whatever. So Mists of Pandaria with its very strong Chinese influence, I wasn't the biggest fan of that. But what I was a big fan of was the idea that you have the Horde and the Alliance, and their war and their conflict is showing up on the shores of this very peaceful native people and is just ruining everything. I was like, this is the premise for some awesome storytelling. And Mists of Pandaria did have a lot of interesting and fun storytelling during its time. I think that the thing that I remember most about Mists of Pandaria is that during this time, I was still a no-life role player, but the gameplay of Mists of Pandaria and just how much there was of it, it was so much fun and it was so enjoyable that it was actually pulling me away from the role playing at times. And I was actually having fun, doing the Thunder King raid and stuff. And, I was enjoying Mists of Pandaria as a game and as a world and stuff. But, I was having fun with Mists of Pandaria. But Mists of Pandaria for me, the thing that I would, the main story that I would share with you guys from this expansion is that Mists of Pandaria is when I started taking World of Warcraft Machinima more seriously. It was when I was like, man, I've got all these stories in my head and on paper that I want to tell, and all these jokes that I want to make, and I want these to be videos. I don't want them to just be ideas in my head or discussions that I'm having with friends on Skype. Oh, how funny would it be if this sort of WoW Machinima existed? I wanted to bring my ideas into reality. And so Mists of Pandaria is where something clicked. I was never, I never got into WoW Machinima to get big or to, get some huge audience or whatever. I just loved making it. I thought it was fun. It was merging my two childhood loves, filming and World of Warcraft. And as I started making more and more Machinima videos during Mists of Pandaria, this is when I started to get noticed a little bit, but it wasn't until Warlords of Draenor that Nixxiom really took off. And it went into a level of success that I never anticipated. Anyway, where would I put Mists of Pandaria on this ranking? Because I'm kind of getting into Warlords of Draenor territory now. But For me, I would throw Mists of Pandaria into the A ranking. Also, I would say, too, that in Mists, as I went back and kept leveling through the old world again and again, because I was a big Altaholic, it's also when I began to really miss, like, OG World of Warcraft. Like, Mists of Pandaria, like I had always been a vanilla WoW fanboy. Like, even during Wrath of the Lich King, I was on the WoW forums asking Blizzard for classic WoW servers. Like, all those years ago. No joke. Like, I was one of those people, like, begging Blizzard to do it. Mists of Pandaria, like, after, you know, the Cataclysm revamp got dull and linear and boring, Mists of Pandaria is when I became a really big classic WoW fanboy. And now let's talk about Warlords of Draenor. Warlords was Blizzard's first expansion where they just completely dropped the ball. The launch was a disaster. Garrisons were a disaster. The patch cycle was a disaster. Everything about Warlords of Draenor was a disaster. The only thing that Warlords of Draenor really hit, like really knocked it out of the park in, was its sort of world and its vibe. The Warlords of Draenor world and stuff, like old Draenor, the savage orcish tribes and these big monsters and ogres and stuff, was awesome. Like, World of Warcraft felt feral and dangerous and badass, you know, especially with like all their like artistic, like I forget what it's called, Warbringers, I think, like that whole art series they did to promote the expansion. Warlords of Draenor was cool. Like, it was a cool expansion with no content in it. And by the time that Warlords of Draenor rolled around, well, it was actually more towards the end of Mists of Pandaria, I had stopped role-playing in World of Warcraft. It's a long story as to why I stopped, but well, it's not that long, but I'll give like a short explanation. The long and short of it is I started playing on a private server during Mists of Pandaria, and I was role-playing on both Retail WoW and on this private server called Prologue WoW. And Prologue WoW's roleplay was so good, and it was so much fun that, I mean, I was sometimes role-playing for 12 to 14 hours a day on Prologue WoW. This was a very, this was a time in my life where I was not doing nothing. Like, I was just role playing, okay? Like, I was having so much fun. And then one day, like, I had built like this huge guild, like on Prologue WoW, and I had all these stories that were going on and whatnot. And one day, I woke up and the whole private server was gone. It was deleted. Because apparently some former admin that had access to like the control console or something, like, he got in there because he had some gripe with the modern admins, and he deleted everything, and they didn't have a backup, and it was gone. All the work was gone. All the story was gone. And so, or everything that I had done was gone. And I had this like sobering moment in my life. And in some ways, I'm very happy that this happened, because like I had this sobering moment where it's like, I had just invested all this time into like roleplay politics and dramas, and like I put all this work in to like these guilds and stuff, and like literally it amounted to nothing. Like it went nowhere. Now, I'm not trying to be one of those people that, you know, sits here and says, you shouldn't play video games and roleplay and play D&D and whatever because it's a waste of time. No, you know, people that say stuff like that are complete morons. Like, fun is, you know, the reward in and of itself. So, you know, I enjoyed all the fun that I had on this private server in Prologue WoW. But two things. One, the roleplay was so good on Prologue WoW that when I went back to role-playing, like near the end of Mists of Pandaria, and I was role-playing on Retail WoW, it was boring. It was dull. Like, I just didn't, and there are reasons why, you know, Prologue WoW had all these like cool roleplay systems and stuff, but it was boring, and it was like a downgrade in quality. And the second thing is, like, I think like around this time, especially near the end of Mists of Pandaria, I had started like like I kind of had this like desire that was growing in me to, like, I guess, do something with my life, you know, like the young man's desire. It's like, you know, I want to go out and I want to, you know, conquer the world a little bit. You know, I want to take all these passions that I had that had built all these WoW guilds over the years and created all this artwork and, you know, whatever, and I wanted to apply it to something. And so Warlords of Draenor, you know, skipping ahead a little bit, in Warlords of Draenor, I really should go back and like look at the dates of like when all these expansions came out, but Warlords of Draenor was when, if I remember correctly, I met Mukluk, and me and him just started going hard on the WoW Machinima stuff. Not because we were hustling, not because we were trying to like, you know, make money or like, you know, grow some big audience or something, but he was just like me. Like, he had these machinima ideas that he thought were hilarious and fun, and he wanted to make those videos, and I wanted to turn my ideas into videos, and we started just collaborating on all of our projects and stuff, lending our voices to each other. And yeah, it was this time of my life where I remember very fondly this particular Skype conversation I had with Mukluk, because I believe we were still using Skype during these days. Like, I believe Discord wasn't a thing yet in Warlords. I don't remember. Maybe it was. But anyway, point is, I had a conversation with Mukluk, and I remember us talking about YouTube channels. And I remember him saying, like, the moment that you get 5,000 subscribers on YouTube, you're a real YouTuber. That's what he thought. Anyway, that was his opinion. Me, I thought it was kind of a little bit more like, maybe like 10 or like 12,000, but he was like 5,000. Like that means you're a real YouTuber. And so I was just dedicated. Like, it was like a challenge almost. Like, I just wanted to hit 5,000 subscribers. And so Warlords of Draenor is where like not only did I get 5,000 subscribers, but like Nixxiom as a channel just began to just take off. Like, we were making all this WoW Machinima together, and suddenly, I mean, I remember making some videos where like releasing them and just watching them go viral in the WoW community. Like, I remember watching, like I remember How to Mage was a machinima that I made during Warlords of Draenor. And in 24 hours, this wasn't the only video that achieved this like goal or whatever, but well, it wasn't really a goal, but like in 24 hours, I remember watching How to Mage get over 100,000 views on YouTube. And that absolutely blew my mind. Like, getting 100,000 views in 24 hours, it was incredible. Warlords of Draenor might have been an expansion with a huge amount of content drought, but for me, like, it was the World of Warcraft Machinima expansion. It was when me and Mukluk became really good friends. It's when all the Nostalria stuff was going on, you know, the classic WoW private server and stuff. Talked about that in other videos. I was having a lot of fun playing on there with Mukluk and everybody else, because we were all playing there, everybody, even Blizzard devs. And Warlords of Draenor was a terrible expansion, like, as a whole, if you look at it from like the gameplay and the Blizzard drama and everything. But like, for me personally, Warlords of Draenor was actually a really good time. Okay, so where would I put Warlords of Draenor on the list? Well, if I was to put it in terms of just gameplay and the expansion as a whole, I mean, it's an F tier expansion. It was like maybe a C tier, but for me personally, because of all the good memories that I have with Warlords of Draenor, not just the ones I just shared with you guys, but there are many others as well. For me, Warlords of Draenor is a bit more of a B tier expansion. And now we have Legion. This is becoming a very long video. Forgive me. I have just many stories to share, and I am barely scratching the surface. Legion was an expansion where the World of Warcraft and Machinima train just kept on chugging along, ladies and gentlemen. Like, Legion was an expansion that like I played it and I was enjoying it, but just like Warlords of Draenor, I was just deep in the pool of making YouTube content. I was having so much fun expressing my love of World of Warcraft, you know, through these characters, you know, Nixxiom and Mukluk and the Noob and the 58 Death Knight. And, you know, this is when like YouTube was now a full-time job for me. Like it wasn't just some little side thing that I was doing for fun. Like I was actually paying my bills in World of Warcraft Legion, like just making WoW Machinima and stuff. World of Warcraft at this point, like I don't remember in what expansions this happened, but like, you know, I submitted a video to BlizzCon's movie contest and I placed in the top 3. And then the very next year, you know, I entered BlizzCon's movie contest again and I placed in the top 3. And that was awesome. And so like I had like this huge YouTube channel and, you know, I'm making all these like WoW Machinima stories and people are loving it, millions of views. And, you know, I'm winning BlizzCon competitions and I was able to travel like around the world and stuff because of this. And, you know, because I met so many awesome people, especially during this time, like during Legion. I met like these, like I think maybe it was in Legion or maybe it was Battle for Azeroth when like I got to go to Germany for the first time. And like that was really big for me because like my whole family is like comes from Germany. And like I was sort of the first person in my family to like kind of to like go back to the fatherland in like in some sides of the family, like generations. You know, like one of my like I've talked about it in another video, but like on my father's side, for example, like my like great whatever grandfather, you know, he was a Hessian who came over here and fought during the Revolutionary War, and he decided to settle here in Virginia and Kentucky and stuff. And anyway, like it was cool, you know, getting to achieve that. Like there was a lot of like life goals that were achieved during this time. You know, I got to move out and like live on my own for a time, and that was cool. And so Legion was just sort of like, Legion was just a time in my life where just everything was going well, man. Like I also was on the bike a lot during this time. I was like a very avid mountain biker. I had lost a ton of weight that I had put on because sitting and editing videos all day, like, you know, it makes you fat. And like, you know, I want to stress too that like, ladies and gentlemen, like I need to stress this, like, don't get the impression that like, I was just kind of sitting around like making WoW videos for a couple hours every now and then, and I was just rolling in it or something. I've never rolled in it at any point in my life. Like, you know, yeah, I had the opportunity to save up and maybe go to Europe like once a year or once every other year, but like that was really it. Like, but I was doing good. You know, I had my own place, and you know, like I was, you know, had a wonderful girlfriend at the time, and anyway, so like, but it was a lot of work. Like it was a lot, because on one hand, I can look back to this window in my life, like the Warlords of Draenor Legion window, and I can be like, yeah, that was a really, really successful time in my life. But it's also like a time of my life where all I did was work. Like it was just nonstop, like 7 days a week at the minimum, like 8 to 12 hour like work days every day, writing and like voice acting and editing in Adobe After Effects and editing in Sony Vegas back in the day, and doing marketing and making thumbnails, and I was streaming, and I was also like working for Super Planet Dolan, so I was doing voice acting for that, and I was also like doing a bunch of, it was a great time of my life, but my goodness, was it a busy time of my life. Very busy, very little free time. My life like looked like this before you start, you know, getting envious or whatever. Like, don't. Like, my life was glued to the computer unless I was out mountain biking, you know, for like 2 hours, like every other day or something, just to, you know, not get deep vein thrombosis in my legs. But like doing that and then saving up some money. And then every summer, or just like whenever I could, like I would like go over to Europe, or I'd go just travel somewhere and spend a week or two there, maybe like a week and a half. And then I would just come back, and then I'd be right back to work for like another, like for just months on end. So very enjoyable time of my life. But A lot of hard work, man. It was a lot. So I much prefer my kind of more humble time of my life today. Just making videos every now and then for you guys, streaming every so often over on Twitch whenever I can, spending time with my wife and daughter. Like, you know, I much prefer this era of my life as opposed to that era. Anyway, so, right, where am I going to put Legion on this list? Well, for me, Legion, like as a game, it was a great expansion. It was also a great time in my life where I kind of showed myself what I could do. I'm throwing Legion into the A category, ladies and gentlemen. Now we arrive to Battle for Azeroth, and this is when things start going downhill, everybody. World of Warcraft really knocked it out of the park with Legion as an expansion. Battle for Azeroth was just a big step down in quality, and there's lots to say about BFA, like why people didn't like it so much. I could make a whole video talking about it, but I wasn't really the biggest fan of Battle for Azeroth. I wasn't. I was still making machinima during the time of BFA, but it was during the time, or during this era in World of Warcraft's history, that I started to kind of dry up on machinima ideas, because, you know, there's a lot of WoW machinima out there. I'm not saying any names, but there's a lot of people who are WoW machinima artists over the years, and the videos that they make are kind of just, they're all very predictable, and they just kind of do one of two things. They're either making fun of Blizzard or they're making fun of the community. And like, I did that too with my machinimas and stuff, but like, my goal, like, it's not like I did this intentionally, but like when I was making all the Nixxiom and Mukluk machinima videos that everybody loved, like, I wasn't really trying to do that. Like, if you watch, for example, like How to Warrior, right? How to Warrior is one of my favorite how to class videos. At no point is Blizzard ever mocked in that video. The community is not mocked. It's just the noob learning how to be a warrior from a guy in the game named Beowulf. You know, if you watch Hidden Artifact Skins, that's one of my favorite machinimas that I've made. Like, it's Nixxiom is on this mission. He's been given this quest by the Knights of the Ebon Blade during Legion to get this hidden artifact skin for his sword. And it's like this whole plot where there's like this evil warlock apparently gathering souls, and, you know, the Knights of the Ebon Blade are trying to figure out, like, you know, oh, who is it and stuff. And it ends up being Mukluk and whatnot. And like, for me, when I made WoW machinima, like, sure, yeah, like every now and then you put a joke in there kind of making fun of how absurd or stupid or ridiculous people in the community can be. You know, certainly there's plenty of videos of mine that have done that. But like, what I really wanted to do with my WoW machinimas, like the main heart of it, was taking Nixxiom and Mukluk and these characters and just putting them in these like absurd situations, or telling stories with them. And it was something that I really delighted in, like over all the years that I was writing these characters, is that I really came to know these characters like on a very intimate level. Like, I know how to write Mukluk. I know how to write Nixxiom. Like, Nixxiom has a full personality. He has likes and dislikes. I know how he would react to certain things. I know where he's a hypocrite. I know where he like stands firm and what he believes in. You know, and right now, I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I'm like working on a book, and it actually is a novel about Nixxiom and Mukluk, like going on this big adventure together. And because these are like, I have some stories that I want to share about Nixxiom and Mukluk, but they're too big, they're too grand for like a 10-minute machinima video. These would be like movies, and like I don't have the thousands of hours of free time to make a whole World of Warcraft machinima movie, you know what I mean? But I can write these stories and I can share them with my children one day. And so that's been a big motivator for me. But why I'm saying all this is that it was in Battle for Azeroth that I felt that my machinima pool of ideas was drying up. Like the little adventures and silly antics that Nixxiom and Mukluk were known for, I was sort of reaching that point where I was like, okay, I have told the stories that I wanted to tell. And by the time Shadowlands rolled around, I told like the final stories with Nixxiom and Mukluk, with like my origin of Nixxiom's story and whatnot, where, you know, it's him in classic WoW learning how to play the game and meeting Mukluk and whatnot. Like I had told the stories and like I was done. Because it was in Battle for Azeroth that I noticed that my videos also began to be just, I don't really know like what the term is for it, but you're just kind of making the same video over and over. The WoW community is dumb. Blizzard's greedy and evil. Like, you know, it's boring. It's predictable. Like, it's not funny. Like, I mean, maybe like, you know, some people can get a little bit of humor out of it, but like, that wasn't me. You know, that's not the story that I wanted to, that's not what I wanted to do with my characters. Anyway, so that's a whole thing. But I think the thing that I remember most about BFA is just being a streamer. Like, BFA is where I got really into Twitch, and I was no-lifing twitch.tv, and I was streaming in front of thousands of people, whether it was WoW or ESO. I was leading all these giant PvP events and giveaways and blah, 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 blah. Like, I was doing a lot back in Battle for Azeroth. So this is kind of like my streaming era. You know, it's like I had my PvP era and raiding and role-playing and WoW Machinima, and now it's my streaming era. And BFA, that's what that was. And so a lot of my memories with Battle for Azeroth are actually with you guys, as corny as that sounds. It's, you know, me and you, or a lot of yous, like getting together and doing like a level 1 gnome raid and attacking Orgrimmar or something, or doing some big world PvP events and like the remastered Darkshore patch or whatever that came out in BFA. Like, that's what I remember about the expansion, because I think BFA was the WoW expansion where I interacted most with you guys, like the greater WoW community. And I don't know, like I got to, I don't really know how to word it, but like I've always loved the WoW community, and BFA is where I really got to like play with it, I guess. I don't really know how to describe it, but there's a lot of good memories that I have for Battle for Azeroth, but there's also a lot of bad memories too, I admit. BFA and Shadowlands, like there was a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes. A lot of drama happened in my life, like during these two windows. And it made content creation on YouTube and like Twitch streaming incredibly difficult. Like my creative energy was gone. I didn't want to get like in front of a camera. Like I had friends die and family members pass away. And it was just, there's a lot that happened. There was so much drama, and it was very depressing. So on one hand, it's like, I think about BFA and Shadowlands, and I'm like, oh, this was, well, BFA. I think about BFA, and I'm like, oh, you know, I had a lot of fun during this time, streaming and whatever. But man, I also remember like near the end of Battle for Azeroth, just really struggling with a lot of stuff in the background of my life. For me, BFA though is like it's below, it's below like Cataclysm and Warlords of Draenor, because I like Twitch streaming. Twitch streaming has always been fun, and it's great to sit down and, you know, play a game with you guys and whatnot. But like my true love is in creating something. It's in building something, whether it's like a YouTube video or a wood carving or working on a book, or like even just like, man, when I first bought this house that I'm currently in, like going through the whole damn house and having to redo all the electrical, like, you know, I like doing things, you know, building something. And, you know, that's always gonna like be, I guess, cooler in my mind, or more appealing than sitting down with the bros and like playing some games, I guess, as selfish as that sounds. But so that's why I'm gonna have to put like Warlords of Draenor, Cataclysm, all that above it, because that's when I was just, it was me and the computer just making machinima, not just me like goofing around as like a level 1 orc with like 1,000 other level 1 orcs doing this, that, and whatever. Shadowlands. Shadowlands was garbage. there is, I don't even. Shadowlands is where I would say that I struggled the most with boredom with YouTube. Boredom with YouTube and Twitch streaming, and like I had been doing it for so many years, and like, I mean, like technically I got started as a content creator in middle school, and I'm 33 now. And Shadowlands is where I was just bored of it. Like, yeah, like I was making some like high quality content in there, and there are some golden moments, like the whole origin of like Nixxiom, like machinima, like series that I did. That was a lot of fun, but I was struggling in Shadowlands, like just as a creator. Like I just kind of wanted to do something else. I was rethinking my life a bit, like, you know, is this really what I want to do? Like, you know, what am I going to be doing like 10 years from now and stuff? There was still a lot of drama happening during this time in my life in the background. So I was also kind of struggling behind the scenes, and like, you know, I felt like my content and my streams were suffering because of it. During Shadowlands, like I was like constantly quitting streaming and coming back. Like I would stream for like a month or 3 or something, and then I would disappear for 2 months and come back, and it was like back and forth, back and forth. So like Shadowlands was a really difficult time for me. It's also like World of Warcraft in Shadowlands and Battle for Azeroth and Warlords of Draenor was just a complete disaster in terms of like Blizzard Entertainment. Blizzard was constantly on the chopping block because of PR disasters, Nostalrius, people drinking and stealing breast milk out of refrigerators, and sexual harassment, you name it. Like, it was hard to be like a content creator for WoW during this time, you know, and Shadowlands, everyone hated it as an expansion. Like I remember making like videos during the Shadowlands alpha and playing the game and talking about like, yeah, like I don't think Shadowlands is going to be any good. Like, I mean, I think it, like they're doing some stuff that's cool. Like I remember making some videos all that time ago, like, will Shadowlands save World of Warcraft? But for the most part, Shadowlands was just boring, man. It was just a boring expansion. And I remember talking about this in the alpha, and I remember people like insulting me for it, saying like I was being a big doomer and whatnot. And Shadowlands came out, and people were miserable, man. I was miserable. Everyone was miserable. Making content for World of Warcraft and Shadowlands was not very fun. Streaming World of Warcraft and Shadowlands was not very fun. I don't remember what year Shadowlands came out, but at, you know, at some point Classic WoW came out, and you know, being able to play Classic was a lot of fun. But man, Shadowlands was just, it was just a not a very fun time. It just wasn't. But Dragonflight then came along. I really liked Dragonflight as an expansion. I thought that it was just fun. It was a nice return to just what I felt was like OG good-hearted fantasy. There is an island and there are dragons on it. Go fight the dragons. It just inspired me. Like I made this orc warrior. I was filled with the spirit of Beowulf and Sigurd the Dragon Slayer. And I just went to the Dragon Isles, and I was just having so much fun. Just flying around, killing dragons, fighting against Farak and whatnot. Dragonflight, I can't really say much about being a content creator in Dragonflight, other than this was just a time where I was just kind of making, you just kind of your simple videos about WoW, like thoughts on patches and, you know, hey, like this is what's coming out next. Like the simple kind of news and update videos. Like at this point, I was no longer making machinima. I had done all the ideas that I wanted to do. I didn't want to force things. I didn't want all my machinima to just be the same crap over and over. And I do remember that in Dragonflight, this is when I like kind of started to get attacked for this a bit. Because as I started to be more open about the fact that I was not doing WoW machinima anymore, people were like accusing me of like being lazy and like, well, I was really it. Like, they were just saying like, well, you're just being lazy, you know, make more machinima or whatever. But like, it didn't matter, or like, it doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, if, you know, if you write a book series one day, if you're watching this and you want to write a book series or something, and you put out like 200 books and you accumulate an audience around what you've created, the moment that you say, okay, I've done enough, I'm done, people are going to say, well, why didn't you write 201 books? And it wouldn't matter if you did write that 201st book or you wrote 300 more books. People would sit and say, hey, why didn't you write 501 books? Like, give me another book. You know, there's a reason why we're called consumers, everybody. Like, we just want to consume. And sometimes we don't know when we've had enough. It was also kind of in Dragonflight that, you know, WoW Machinima was kind of just dying out. Like, you know, the WoW community just wasn't what it used to be. And even like the machinimas that I did make in Shadowlands, like, they were some of the best machinimas I ever made, at least in my opinion. And no one really cared. No one was really watching them anymore. So there wasn't even really that much of an audience interest. So, I mean, I was making machinimas in Shadowlands, releasing them, and they would get like 30,000 views. Like, just no one really cared. Like, there just wasn't as big of an audience anymore. Anyway, so, but, you know, overall, I had fun with Dragonflight. Dragonflight was almost like a breath of fresh air kind of WoW expansion for me. I wasn't under like the constant pressure to make like machinima all the time. A lot of the dramas in my life had calmed down at this point. I was able to just play World of Warcraft again and just enjoy it. I don't think that Dragonflight was an amazing expansion. It's definitely not an S tier. It's not A tier either. But I would probably put Dragonflight maybe in like the B tier. Like, it was okay. Like, it was fun, but it wasn't great. And now we move to The War Within. Really, I don't have much to say about The War Within because, you know, I played The War Within and I did enjoy it, just like I enjoyed Dragonflight. But really, for most of The War Within, I was playing Classic WoW. I'm playing Classic, I'm playing Hardcore, like, you know, I was having a lot of fun doing that. I wasn't really the big, like, I felt that The War Within had a really strong start, and I really liked all the Undermined stuff, but everything else in War Within was just kind of like whatever. It was very meh. It wasn't a terrible expansion, you know, it wasn't like Shadowlands terrible, but it wasn't great or even like an okay expansion for me. It was just kind of like a shrug of my shoulders whenever I thought about it. I made a lot of content about The War Within during its time, but really I was mostly focused on Classic WoW because, you know, during Dragonflight, like maybe the second half of Dragonflight and all throughout The War Within, it was like, this is when my love of Classic WoW and OG World of Warcraft was really just, like, I really just got to water that love with being able to play like Vanilla WoW and TBC and Wrath. And, you know, again, I don't really remember the years and the dates on everything, but, you know, I know in those two expansions, you know, I just played a lot of Classic. And I just had a lot of fun doing it. Where would I put The War Within? Well, I'm going to probably put it in the C category, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for any War Within fans out there. And now we arrive to where we are currently at, which is Midnight. I don't really think it's fair to judge Midnight because Midnight is still going on. So, you know, maybe the expansion will end up being amazing by the end of it, or maybe it's just going to go down as Midnight, as everybody is saying. So far, like, I think that Midnight had a fantastic beginning. I loved Midnight when it first came out, but it's just been like blunder after blunder after blunder from Blizzard Entertainment. Like, sometimes you get the vibe from Blizzard that, like, despite all of their talk about how much they care about WoW and the future of the game, you do get the vibe from them, especially, I mean, I do anyway, especially as someone that's been playing the game for so long. You get the vibe from them that really all they're doing now is they just have the game completely in a sort of maintenance mode. They are just maintaining the systems that they know keep players coming back every so often, and they are just putting more and more microtransactions in the game, more and more cash shop opportunities, and they're just trying to milk the WoW community and what's left of it for as much as they got before eventually the servers do die and they have to shut things down. That's the vibe that I get all too often. And it sucks, you know, that Midnight is polluted with that right now. Like, I don't have a good taste in my mouth at the moment with Midnight. But I will say, like, on the other side of things, like, as a content creator, I've been having a lot of fun in Midnight. I started this Nixxiom Talks channel just to be a place where I just share my thoughts. I don't really edit the videos very much. I just talk, and you guys seem to really, really enjoy it. And, you know, we're now almost at 6,500 subs after just like, what, 2-3 months or whatever. Like, that's incredible. Over on like my main Nixxiom channel, I'm doing the whole Tales of Warcraft series, like doing this like, you know, really high quality, like kind of storytelling with Warcraft lore and whatnot, like OG classic WoW lore. And that's a ton of fun. And, you know, I've been streaming on Twitch again very consistently, and not the past 2 weeks at the time of me recording this. Like, past 2 weeks were kind of busy, but, you know, I've been back streaming on Twitch, and like, that's been nice doing that every now and then, just talking with you guys. And, you know, it's just, you know, maybe like less than 100 people nowadays, and that's good, honestly, because now I can just, I don't know, now I can just kind of sit back and smoke a cigar and just talk about some deeper topics with you all, because we've all grown up and been around the world a couple of times and been around the block, and I don't know, it's just cool hanging out with you guys and smoking a cigar and talking about real things. But anyway, so Midnight, like, as a content creator, has been very enjoyable so far. I've been having a lot of fun. And also, this is the time of my life where I'm raising my first child, and so that has been wonderful. We're hoping for more children soon, and want to have at least a dozen. That is the goal. How am I going to afford that? I have no idea, but we will find a way. Maybe the books will do very, very well. We will see. But again, I'll talk about the book and stuff in a dedicated video later on. So far, Midnight, like, as a game, the game has been, like, I don't know, like, I've got a sour taste in my mouth, but I don't hate Midnight. I don't think it's terrible or anything yet, and most of the issues that I have with it have just been like Blizzard's horrible PR decisions, like, hey, let's hyper monetize the player housing thing. Like, okay, you know, we all knew it was going to happen, but man, this has been aggressive. But anyway, I've talked about that in other videos. I'm gonna put Midnight in, honestly, I'm just gonna put it right here. I'm gonna put it in the C category right now, because at the moment, at the time of me recording this, like, I don't really have a lot of desire to play Midnight. And if I open up World of Warcraft later this evening to play it, which I will, I'm gonna be playing TBC Anniversary. Because at the moment, when it comes to Midnight, I'm just waiting for Labyrinths to come out, because that's like the main thing of Midnight that I want to play and that I want to check out. So that's it. And then we have The Last Titan. I can't judge that, so we will see. But this is my tier list, everybody. Not necessarily just about gameplay and mechanics, but just, you know, experiences that I've had playing the game with friends and with you guys, and as a content creator, and making machinima, and as a role player and a raider and a PvPer and a streamer. And like, man, like, this was a long video, and believe me, it could have been a lot longer, because as I was recording this, like, every single expansion, it's like 20 ideas or 20 stories are coming to mind of like, oh, remember when this happened? And yeah, so this video could have been a lot longer, but my mouth is dry now from talking so much, so I think I'm gonna go get a glass of water and chill out for a little bit. I do really appreciate you guys watching the videos and enjoying them and leaving the comments and the likes, especially subscribing. Like, seeing how fast the channel has grown has just been, that's just been really cool, guys. Like, it's just been awesome. I also am very surprised at how many of you like these tier list videos. Like, for some reason, these tier list videos do really, really well on this channel. Like, even like the numbers, the analytics behind the scenes, I'm like, what is it about these videos that you guys like so much? Like, anyway, thank you guys for watching. It is much appreciated. Feel free to crucify me down in the comment section below based on what you think of my list. And I'll see you with my next video right here on Nixxiom Talks. Yes, I have shaved my head bald. Anyway, In the last tier list video that I made for you guys, I did all of World of Warcraft's expansions, but not only did I talk about the gameplay and the content of each expansion, but I rated each expansion based on my personal experience with World of Warcraft. What I was doing during those expansions, the stories that I had, the memories, so on and so forth. You guys really enjoyed that tier list, and so thank you all for the very positive comments on that video. That all said, today we are doing a very heavily requested tier list video, and that is classic World of Warcraft dungeons. These dungeons are so iconic, and I have so many stories from each dungeon to share with you all, but I'm not trying to record a video that's over an hour long like my expansions video, so I'm going to try to hold myself back a little bit. But let's geek out about some lore, some nostalgia, and let's just talk about some classic WoW dungeons, ladies and gentlemen. And we're starting things off with Black Fathom Deeps. So, also I should say that for those that have never seen one of these videos before, S ranking is of course awesome, amazing, and D ranking is absolutely terrible, okay? We are starting things off with Black Fathom Deeps. The first thing to say about this dungeon that I absolutely love about it is the entrance. Black Fathom Deeps, if you don't remember, or if you haven't done Black Fathom Deeps before, in order to get to the entrance to this dungeon, you need to go to the coast on the western side of Ashenvale, and there on the northern part of the beach, you will find this temple full of Naga, and you'll go down into the temple, you'll swim underwater and whatnot, if I'm not mistaken, and you emerge into this cave that is hidden underground. This cave with roots coming out through the sides, and there are ancient wisps like spinning around, illuminating some of the cavernous space and whatnot. And this cave is just full of Naga and other things trying to prevent you from getting deeper inside. I absolutely love the entrance to Black Fathom Deeps. It's one of those things that, you know, some of you might disagree with what I'm about to say, but it's one of the things that I actually really enjoyed about Classic WoW, how the dungeons were almost like hidden in the world. The entrance to Black Fathom Deeps wasn't just a portal that was sitting out in the open that you could just walk through and, you know, you do the dungeon and you come out. In order to just get to the dungeon, it's like you had to do a micro dungeon to get to the dungeon. And some people really liked that, like me, for example. Some people didn't really like it, but I always thought it kind of added to the more immersive quality of the world, at least. Now, in terms of the dungeon itself and the content within, Black Fathom Deeps, I think, is pretty fun. Forgive me, but I don't remember the names of every single boss from Classic WoW, but I enjoyed the little jumping puzzle that was at the beginning of this dungeon that Blizzard brought back for Season of Discovery. They actually used it in the Black Fathom Deeps raid. I mean, I'm going to get back to this, but Blizzard Entertainment themselves clearly really enjoyed BFD to the point that they made it into a raid, but I'll come back to that. I really enjoy the fact that as you go deeper into the dungeon, you kind of like go from this sort of cave explorer experience to going into the ruins of some ancient Night Elf architecture and seeing the Twilight's Hammer cult and how they've infested the ruins and how they're trying to bring forth this ancient servant of the old gods, the two-headed Hydra, the three-headed Hydra, whatever, I forget his name. But you know, they're trying to bring forth this guy, and there's all this like old god influence down there, and it's just really cool. Like, it's like the deeper you go, the more corrupt and evil the dungeon becomes. I love Black Fathom Deeps. I think it's an example of one of Classic WoW's coolest dungeons, at least in my opinion. And if you're a big Night Elf player, big Night Elf fan like I am, you love their lore, you loved reading like the War of the Ancients book trilogy back when you were younger or something, this dungeon probably really speaks to you and really enchants you. And like I said before, this dungeon didn't just remain in Classic WoW, because later on down the road when Blizzard was doing Season of Discovery, what they did, for those that didn't do this, is they released Season of Discovery in phases. So in phase 1, the level cap was only 25. I think it was 25. You guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure it was 25. And at level 25, for the end game of phase 1, you could do this new raid, which was Black Fathom Deeps, with, you know, these bosses with updated mechanics and epic weapons that you could get and new quest lines and stuff. And it was so much fun. I loved doing Black Fathom Deeps with you guys. I mean, some of you guys watching this video might have actually done Black Fathom Deeps with me. You know, we were in a guild together, like, and it was great, man. The phase 1 of Season of Discovery was just so much fun. So, well, that all said, where would I rank Black Fathom Deeps on this tier list? In my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, I think that this is an A tier dungeon. Fantastic. I would recommend somebody do it any day of the week, but I don't think it's like the best, like definitive, most awesome dungeon or dungeons from Classic WoW, but my goodness, is it up there. And speaking of really awesome dungeons, Blackrock Depths. I think it's really hard to put into words how good Blackrock Depths is as a dungeon in Classic WoW. I'm gonna be honest, I think that it probably is the best dungeon in all of Classic WoW. And I don't think that's a controversial opinion in the slightest. The only people that might disagree with that are just people, and I completely understand this, they've done Blackrock Depths so many times, they've just gotten sick of it. But really, like, look at this dungeon from a bird's eye perspective. So, first and foremost, the location of it. It's in a frickin' volcano. It's an entire dwarven city in a volcano, okay? For the one person watching this that you've never done Blackrock Depths before, this is a huge dungeon. It's a city, like it's a full city. If you do the entire thing with a group that doesn't know what they're doing and they don't know, like, you know, where to go and such, and they're not super geared up, this dungeon can take quite a while. There's puzzles in this dungeon. Terrain moves around, like, you know, the door opens and whatnot. The entrance to Molten Core is in this dungeon. Fun fact for those that didn't know that, but I'm sure most of you do. Like, it's almost like Blizzard went so all out with this dungeon, it almost borders on the line of, like, madness. Like, why would you put so much effort into this single dungeon in terms of just its scale and its complexity? Because there is no other dungeon in Classic WoW. I mean, there are some big dungeons in Classic WoW, don't get me wrong, but I don't think there's any other dungeon that really matches Blackrock Depths in terms of just the amount of content and things to discover within the dungeon. At least I think so, anyway. In terms of the lore and the storytelling, so many stories revolve around Blackrock Depths. I know most of you guys probably aren't big World of Warcraft lore fans, especially Classic WoW lore and such like I am, but like the whole conflict, the Cold War that exists between the Dwarven kingdoms and their cousins, the Dark Iron Dwarves, like that conflict like culminates in this dungeon and what's going on. You know, Magni Bronzebeard's daughter has been kidnapped and such, and you go in there and figure out what has happened story-wise, and there's just so much to say in terms of just the lore of this location. And something that I love, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more as time goes on, but I love how like the evil or the wickedness or the corruption of like what you encounter as an adventurer in Classic WoW slowly ramps up as you level up in the game. And when you go into Blackrock Depths, I mean, what do you immediately see? The first thing you see in terms of like the ambience and the vibe are all these slaves that have been locked away in these cages on the sides of walls and underneath your feet and on the ceiling. And you have that almost more like Moria kind of vibe, deep dwarven choir just echoing in your headphones if you have WoW's music turned on. And it's such an enchanting place. Like the first time I went to Blackrock Depths, the first time I found it, and oh yeah, by the way, this is also a dungeon where you gotta find it. You got to go into Blackrock Mountain, the volcano. You got to go across the chains and everything, blah, blah, blah. Go down into like the big mining operation pit, go all the way to the back, and boom, there's the dungeon entrance. So just like Black Fathom Deeps, you have like this like micro dungeon adventure experience before you even reach the dungeon. Like, oh my, like it is insane, like how much effort Blizzard put into this. I cannot express how much I love it. You know, the whole Nixxiom quest chain and like the revelation that Nixxiom has been manipulating Stormwind and the nobles and all the regions around Stormwind. Like it all culminates in this dungeon, and, you know, saving, you know, Marshall Windsor and stuff, and, you know, taking him back to Stormwind. All that stuff happens in Blackrock Depths. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't like, a long time ago, there was this YouTuber, and his name is Tips Out, if you guys remember Tips Out from back in the day. And he made a video all about Blackrock Depths and just how it is like the greatest dungeon ever made for an MMORPG. And I agree with him, 100%. There are dungeons that I like more than Blackrock Depths in terms of like aesthetics and lore and stuff like that. But like it is like the greatest dungeon that I've ever done in an MMO, like hands down. And so, yeah, Tips Out. I think he manages like OTK now, if I'm not mistaken. At least he was for a while. Maybe he doesn't do that anymore. But anyway, but that video I highly recommend you check out. Blackrock Depths. It should be no surprise to see that I'm putting it in the S tier, ladies and gentlemen. And now we move on to Dire Maul. I never really did Dire Maul that much. Like in all my years playing World of Warcraft, the amount of times that I did Dire Maul, I mean, definitely more than the average World of Warcraft player, I'm sure. But compared to maybe some people, like not that much. I never really liked to Dire Maul. And I'm a huge Night Elf player. You know, I love Night Elf lore. And so going into these ancient Night Elf ruins and stuff, like you would think that they would enchant me a lot more. I would be more fascinated by Dire Maul, but it's never been one of my favorite dungeons in this game. And whenever I've like talked with friends and stuff, like in cigar lounges, and we've geeked out over like classic WoW or Warcraft lore and dungeons and stuff, the subject of Dire Maul always comes up, and people love Dire Maul. Like they love the different wings and stuff. Like you're fighting ogres, and then you're fighting demons, and you're fighting treants, and you got the warlock, you know, friggin' mount quest and stuff in there. And there's all this lore about like the night elves that you can discover, and like it's a cool dungeon. Like don't get me wrong. And I completely understand why some people absolutely love Dire Maul. Like they delight in it, especially because it's so damn big. You know, it's not as big as Blackrock Depths by no means, but it's still a big dungeon. I don't know why it's never really been one of my favorites. I can't exactly say what it is. Maybe it's the color scheme. It's something as simple as that, or the music or whatever. But at least for me, I've always kind of looked at Dire Maul as a, this is going to be a controversial one. I've always kind of seen Dire Maul as like, oh, this one's actually kind of hard. A C tier dungeon. If I ever have to do Dire Maul, I'm never looking forward to it. Like I'll do it, I can have fun doing it, but I don't look forward to it. And I know that someone in the comment section is gonna be like, what? when they see that I said that. This is going to be another one that you guys are going to be like, what? And it's Gnomeregan. Okay, so a lot of people like Gnomeregan, dude. Like, Gnomeregan is like, for some people, cooler than sliced bread. Cooler than the bee's knees. Like, people love Gnomeregan. All right, here it comes. So I don't really like Gnomeregan. I think it's very ugly. I think it's kind of confusing. It's very easy to get lost in Gnomeregan. I don't even particularly like the story of Gnomeregan. It's like, oh, we gotta fill the whole city with gas because the trogs and stuff, and you know, some of the gnomes escaped and they went to Ironforge, and others like remained and they're evil or whatever. Like you got like the irradiated gnomes and stuff. Like, I don't know. Like I've talked about it in other tier list videos, but like I'm a big and I'm a huge hypocrite when it comes to this. I know I'm a hypocrite, but we're all hypocrites in one way or another. I'm a really big, like, traditional fantasy fan. And so whenever, like, you start introducing the steampunk stuff, like the gnomes and the helicopters and the guns and stuff like that, well, maybe not the guns, but like it immediately kind of turns me off. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the guy that I love playing D&D where it's like we're going into a haunted castle to rescue the princess or something. Like, I am so generic, and those are the stories that I love. And so going into like this irradiated, gas-filled techno gizmo city to fight, you know, the enemies of Mechatork and the gnomes, there's also the fact that, bros, for most of Classic WoW, I've always been a Horde player. Like, I've certainly leveled Alliance characters in Classic WoW, especially since 2019. But man, back in the day, like back in OG World of Warcraft, when I first started playing this game, I was a Horde player, 100% Horde player. So like, I don't have these fond childhood nostalgic memories of Gnomeregan. I don't, like maybe some of you guys have. But I will say, the Gnomeregan raid was fun. In Season of Discovery, I very much enjoyed it. Whenever Blizzard did like phase 2 or phase 3 of Season of Discovery, Gnomeregan was the new raid after Black Fathom Deeps. I don't think there was one in between those two. I'm pretty sure there wasn't. But Gnomeregan was a raid in Season of Discovery. I got to do it. It was a ton of fun. I liked the items that dropped from it. Gnomeregan raid was great. Like, honestly, I think one of the main reasons why I don't enjoy Gnomeregan is like, whenever I do it, it almost feels like it should be a raid. You know, it's like you're saving Gnomeregan and reclaiming it from the trogs and evil gnomes and stuff. Like, this is like the conclusion to the gnomish storyline. Like it almost feels like it should be a raid. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm not the biggest gnome player, so sorry to my audience out there that you love gnomes, you think they're great. Maybe one day I should level up a gnome in Classic WoW and, you know, truly convert to the great gnomish religion of worshiping Mechatork and reclaiming Gnomeregan. And what a shame it is that even after all these years, like World of Warcraft's been out for what, 22 years now or whatever, Gnomeregan has still not been reclaimed. That all said, ladies and mostly gentlemen, where am I putting Gnomeregan? Well, I'm gonna be real. I would rather do Gnomeregan than Dire Maul. And so therefore, yeah, and I do admire some things about Gnomeregan. I like the enemy variety. I like that it stands out as a dungeon in World of Warcraft compared to others. That all said, I'm throwing Gnomeregan into the B category. That's right. Lower Blackrock Spire is a dungeon that has never really been all that special to me. There's nothing about it that I fondly remember from my OG days of playing World of Warcraft back when I was a teenager. There's no particular boss fight or place that I enjoy in the dungeon. The one thing that I've always liked about Blackrock Spire is I do enjoy how vertical the dungeon is. You know, you have those moments when you're up on like the ramparts and stuff, or the platforms, and you're looking down and you see all the mobs down beneath you and stuff. And I've always liked that. I've always thought that was cool. And going in there, you know, fighting like, you know, the corrupted black dragons and stuff, and they're allied with ogres and orcs and all the whelps and stuff. Like, I've always thought that was fun. But really, like, I had to like pause for a moment before I started talking about this bit. I really had to sit here and think, like, is there anything special about Lower Blackrock Spire for me to talk about? Like, but I don't even think I have like a single story from this dungeon where something cool happened or whatever. It was just an end game dungeon. You know, you did it and you did it again and again, and you put it on farm until eventually, like, I mean, really the coolest thing you can say about Blackrock Spire is, you know, the whole Leroy Jenkins thing, but that's Upper Blackrock Spire. You know, that's not even lower. So yeah, this one, I wish I could say more about it, but I really don't have much to say. I'm probably gonna throw it probably in the B category with Gnomeregan. it's just a dungeon, you know, it's a good dungeon, it's nice. But then again, now that I think about it, I mean, like, I feel like I enjoy Gnomeregan way more than Lower Blackrock Spire. I'm gonna drop it to the C. I'm dropping it to the C tier. But Maradon, or however the heck you pronounce that dungeon, now we're talking. This is a dungeon that, okay, whenever I tell people that I like Maradon or Maradon, I'm gonna call it Maradon. Whenever I tell people that I like Maradon, people look at me like I am a complete moron. They're like, how the heck can you like such a long, boring, stinky dungeon? And I mean stinky. It's just nothing but nasty, flea-covered centaur and disgusting flea-covered satyr, and you got corrupted treants and these big like stink slimes, and then you have Princess Therazane at the end with her big bootylicious looking self. Like, how the heck can you like this dungeon? I like it for a few reasons. One, I like it simply because nobody likes it. I am one of those people. If everybody is kind of united around an idea of like, this is bad, or like this is stupid, there's like an appeal to that for me. I'm just like, oh, well, I like that. I don't know, maybe I'm just trying to be a special snowflake, but like, there are plenty of movies and video games and stuff that I could probably list that like the majority of the world absolutely hates it, but I'm like, oh, that dude, now that stuff's my jam. Like, I love that movie. I love that video game for this reason or that reason. Like, and to give you an example, like, I really love the 2007 CGI Beowulf movie. Everyone hated that movie. Me, I thought it was the coolest movie I'd ever seen. It's still one of my favorite movies to this day. But and people look at me like I'm an idiot. Anyway, why do I like Maradon? Well, the first reason is because I really like Desolace. Yeah, another shock if you haven't watched my other videos here on this new YouTube channel. Big shout out to everybody that's been subscribing. Thank you guys. We're almost at 7,000 subs already. Like, we just started. Anyway, like, I really like Desolace. I like the centaur, you know, tribal warfare thing going on. I like the fact that Desolace feels so far away from civilization. Like, there's many reasons why I like Desolace. And Maradon, like, it's like you're descending into the depths of Desolace. You are so far away from the civilized world, and you're finding these like ancient caverns that were carved out by centaur and rock golems and whatever else. Like, who knows how many hundreds or thousands of years ago. Like, the place feels ancient. It feels primordial. Like, when you're in like the fungal caves and stuff, it's like, I don't know, like there's something about it. Like, it feels like you are just on a true adventure. Like, and then there's the bit where you enter into like Princess Therazane's kind of place, where like all this time you've been in Desolace and it's dry and dusty and nasty and nothing grows there. And then you go into her like area of the dungeon, and it's green and verdant, and there's these huge, beautiful waterfalls falling everywhere. And then you learn about the lore, about how the centaur guy, the keeper of the grove, don't remember his name off the top of my head, but the keeper of the grove guy, he kind of got it on with Princess Therazane, and she kind of crapped out the first centaur, and you kind of like imagine that in your head for a moment while you're fighting her, and you're like, Maradon is just cool. It feels like just a proper adventure dungeon on the edge of civilization, delving into the ruins of ancient deities and histories that have been long forgotten. And I love that, man. Maradon, at least for me, here we go. Are you ready? Is an A-tier dungeon. It is a dungeon that I would genuinely tell people, like, man, if you want a fun dungeon, you should go do Maradon in Classic WoW. Like, and yeah, I could see you guys shaking your heads already, especially the people that skip to the end of these tier list videos just to see how I ranked things without the explanations or whatever. And then they leave the comments like, what? Like, it's great. And speaking of great, back in high school, when I was playing World of Warcraft all day and I was getting bullied by the jocks at school because they were jealous of the fact that I was like a level like 40 something undead mage and they weren't, bro, I loved me some Ragefire Chasm. And I used to tell people, I used to point at them and I used to say, I have descended into the Ragefire Chasm. What have you done with your life in comparison? And that was like this saying between me and my friends. Like we would say it all the time. Anyway, Ragefire Chasm is the first dungeon that Horde players will go on to or go into or whatever. It's located in Orgrimmar. It's very easily accessible. And it does lose some points for that. You know, you don't really have that like edge of civilization feel. You don't have that dungeon experience that you get in like Moradon and whatchamacallit, Blackrock Depths and Black Fathom Deeps and stuff. It's very easy. It's very simple. It introduces you to the basic mechanics of the game. It's in a neat area. You know, you got like the lava pits around you and stuff, and the music is cool and the vibe is cool. And, you know, it's like this like secret, you know, Burning Blade cult is deep underneath Orgrimmar. And you do kind of scratch your chin a little bit. And you're like, you know, why isn't Thrall just like sent down like a few hundred orcs down here just to kill all these guys? Like, it would be like if in the center of New York City, if you like went down into some caves, if there was like some secret like Illuminati cult that was like obviously there in like this hellscape cavern underneath New York, and everyone's just chilling upstairs like on the streets selling cabbages while they know that like these bunch of Satan worshipers like downstairs. Anyway, it's a little weird in terms of like its lore, I suppose. It's I don't even know how to describe that. It's a little weird, but it's still an enjoyable dungeon, but it's by no means like a great dungeon or anything. You know, you never finish Ragefire Chasm like, yeah, I can't believe I did Ragefire Chasm. Like, even like if you do it in hardcore, like it's not really like that impressive. Anyway, where would I rank Ragefire Chasm? I mean, it's a nice little intro dungeon. I'd probably put it on the same tier as like, I'm probably going to put it as a C tier dungeon. It's a dungeon. It's nice. It fulfills its purpose. It can be cool in some areas, just like Blackrock Spire and Dire Maul, but there's nothing really much to say about it. Just a neat little dungeon. So now we have Razorfen Downs. In my opinion, RFD is a much better dungeon than RFK, but both dungeons are not amazing. I think what makes RFD better, though, in my opinion, than RFK is the fact that, like, Quillbore lore is pretty simple and straightforward in World of Warcraft. You've got these pig guys called the Quillbore, and they exist to do nothing but piss you off. They just raid caravans and steal crap in the night, and they're just a bunch of annoying Quillbores. Like, they're just like feral boars in Georgia. They just go around and just ruin everything, and you just gotta deal with them. And like, they're always having litters, so there's always millions of them running around. They're easy to kill, and you know, they have a thing for like the old god of the wild, the big pig god, like Agamemnon or whatever his name is. They got a big thing for him, and they have a little bit of lore in relation to their, you know, like their shamanism and stuff. You know, they bring up these great big brambles of thorns to defend the areas where they build their homes and stuff. But in Razorfen Downs, you find out something interesting about the Quillbore. Some of them are working with the Scourge. Yeah, like the Scourge is trying to have a stronger presence and a stronger foothold in Kalimdor, and somehow a Lich has gotten into RFD and has been manipulating things in relation to the Quillbore down there, teaching them necromancy and stuff, having them gather up a bunch of dead bodies. And the Scourge is sort of building like this grassroots beginning of a foothold in Kalimdor. And I think that's the coolest thing about RFD. Like, if you're going through the Barrens and you're killing the Quillbore and you're finding Chen's empty keg and stuff, you ain't sitting there thinking about Arthas and the Scourge and Liches and Necromancers and stuff like that. But then you go into this dungeon and you're like, oh, whoa, like this is a big surprise at the end. You know, you're seeing all the skeletons and abominations and stuff. You're like, what the heck is all this? You know, and you're finding the big bone piles and there's like one skeleton boss at the top. And then at the end, you find a Lich completely out of left field. Like you never really expected. At least I never did the first time I did RFD. And I think that's what makes this dungeon kind of cool. So I like RFD. I think it's fun. There's also the quest. I believe it's the escort. We have to escort the red dragon out of it, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a minute since I've done RFD, but it's a good dungeon. And RFK, like on the other hand, RFK is just fighting Quillbore. I mean, there's really nothing to say about it. Whenever I think about RFK, I think about running on the big thorns, escorting the goblin, which takes way too long and nobody ever wants to do it. And I think about harvesting bat guano. Yeah, because there's a quest where you gotta like literally gather a bunch of bat feces at one point in RFK. Other than that, you're just killing Quillbore. It's like the Quillbore conclusive experience. You're going into Quillbore capital and killing all their leaders and stuff. And that can be kind of cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I enjoy the Quillbore as an enemy in classic World of Warcraft. They do like have their place in classic WoW's vibe and appeal, but RFK is not really that interesting of a dungeon, at least not for me. How would I rate these? Well, Razorfen Downs, I'm gonna put RFD probably as a B tier dungeon up there with Nomergon. Like, it's fun. You can genuinely find some decent fun out of it. But RFK, I'm probably gonna throw that into the C category. Like, it's just a good dungeon, you know, but it's not terrible or whatever. Now that I think about it, I need to like here I am like halfway through this video, and I need to think, are there any of these dungeons that I would genuinely throw on the D category? Yeah, there is. Okay. Anyway, let's continue with Scholomance. Scholomance is up there, ladies and gentlemen, as one of my favorite dungeons in classic World of Warcraft. It is definitely in the top 3. You know, I actually just made a whole video over on my main Nixxiom channel. It was a new Tales of Warcraft episode all about Scholomance, and specifically it was about the lore of Scholomance, the terrifying lore of this school. Scholomance is probably, like, its lore and its storytelling is probably the darkest in all of classic WoW. And in my Tales of Warcraft video, I go over all that, but I also talk about the real life lore that inspired Scholomance, because Scholomance is not just a dungeon in World of Warcraft. It actually was a real place at one point in history. Anyway, you can go watch that video if you want. Just look up the main Nixxiom YouTube channel and then Tales of Warcraft. Anyway, Scholomance is fun, man. If you like Warcraft 3, if you loved Kel'Thuzad and Arthas and the Scourge and stuff, like me, for example, I love that stuff, man. Scholomance is just, it has such a vibe to it. My first character in World of Warcraft was a Forsaken, and as I was questing through the world and as I was learning more about what it meant to be a Forsaken, and I was learning about the Lich King and the Scourge and stuff, when I encountered Scholomance, this school of necromancers that were adding like more soldiers and stuff to the Lich King's army, and, you know, creating new plagues of undeath to torment the world with, or to ruin the world with, rather, I loved Scholomance. It's a dungeon that I've done so many times and I've never gotten tired of it. I just love Scholomance. What can I say? And at least for me, Scholomance is an S tier dungeon. And now we have Shadowfang Keep. If you guys have been watching Nixxiom for a minute, you know, not even very long, just a minute, maybe like just several videos, at some point I have probably geeked out over Shadowfang Keep. Along with Blackrock Depths and Scholomance, it is one of my top 3 dungeons in all of World of Warcraft. Like, I love it. Or classic World of Warcraft, that is. Shadowfang Keep, as I've described it in the past and as I'm going to describe it now, it is like textbook D&D adventure fantasy. there is this haunted forest full of these nightmarish werewolves, and there is this haunted castle above this village whose citizens turn into monsters late at night when the moon comes out. And within that haunted castle, there are ghosts and the biggest and baddest of those werewolf men. And at the top of it all is the great mad sorcerer, Arugal, who is like the cause of all of this. And I love it. Like, I have so many memories of going through Shadowfang Keep and being so scared the first time I was leveling up a warrior in Classic WoW and I was trying to tank, and Shadowfang Keep was the first dungeon I was attempting to do. I skipped Ragefire Chasm. And so here I am, Orc Warrior, trying to tank, doing a terrible job. It was great. I have so many memories of doing Shadowfang Keep in Classic WoW when they re-released it in 2019 with Mookluk, a good friend of mine, and going through that dungeon with just 3 people and trying to clear it. That was so much fun. I love the location of it. I love the look of it. I love the bosses of it. The loot, especially if you're a caster at the end, like Arugal's robes and stuff, are fantastic. Shadowfang Keep is S tier for me, 100%. And this tier list in particular, it broke down, or it did not break down the Scarlet Monastery dungeons into separate ones. It just kind of gives a universal Scarlet Monastery thing. So I'm going to try to judge Scarlet Monastery just like, I guess, as a whole, as a collective. Scarlet Monastery has kind of like back in the day, it was always considered a rite of passage after you had done SM, like all the wings of it. Because like leading up to Scarlet Monastery, things like crowd control and stuff like that, it wasn't really necessary, back in the early 2000s when we were playing World of Warcraft. But Scarlet Monastery was the point when you needed to know how to crowd control. You needed to know how to mark targets. You needed to know how to corner pull. And it's funny because today we play Classic WoW and we don't do any of that. But I have very fond memories of going through Scarlet Monastery as my undead mage and, sheeping moon and, sheep moon and sap triangle or whatever, focus skull and then do X, like X is the second target. And I remember doing that like all the time and people breaking my crowd control and me freaking out. Like we were all a bunch of noobs back then and it was so much fun because of it. Scarlet Monastery, like the graveyard SM dungeon, I mean, it is very meh, incredibly meh. I enjoyed the torture wing in the beginning a lot. Side note, in Turtle WoW, I actually liked the fact that they expanded that part of the dungeon and added a whole new area to the torture room and stuff. I thought that was cool. Let's see, what are all the wings? Library is, at least in my opinion, the best one. I like Library. I like the look of it. I like all of it. Armory is whatever. Like, it's okay. I mean, it's got one boss at the end. And then Cathedral. Like, Cathedral is a lot of fun, although I find Cathedral to be a little bit annoying just because of, when you get into the Cathedral itself, just clearing out all the mobs and stuff. Lots of really cool lore, though, in Scarlet Monastery. Like, I could really geek out about some Scarlet Crusade lore. Let me tell you what. Finding Fairbanks, like, hidden in the back of the Scarlet Monastery for the first time, that's really cool. Why are they keeping this undead guy back here? And all the lore with Mograine and the Ashbringer and what happens if you bring the corrupted Ashbringer into Scarlet Monastery, if you're able to get it when it drops in Naxxramas. Like, that's awesome. Like, Scarlet Monastery is, for many people, even like the sets, like, oh my goodness, like the Scarlet Monastery set and the tavern and stuff looks so cool. Scarlet Monastery is like some of the dungeons are certainly stronger than others, but if I was to judge Scarlet Monastery as a collective, I'm probably going to throw it into the A tier category. A church or monastery of zealot light worshippers trying to hold out in the Plague Lands, or rather Tirisfal Glades, which is a part of the greater scourged Plague Lands, I suppose. I mean, it's awesome. What can I say? Like, and Scarlet Monastery, it has a reputation of being an awesome set of dungeons for a reason. The stockades are like Ragefire Chasm. They're just located right in the middle of Stormwind. It's easy to get to. It makes a little bit more sense than Ragefire Chasm because it's the Stormwind prison And you go down there and there's been a jailbreak and you're just kind of going from cell to cell to cell, wiping out like all the mobs and stuff that are inside, gathering up things for quests and stuff. Really, I mean, the Stockades is kind of a boring dungeon. Like, it can be fun sometimes, but like, I don't have any fond memories of doing Stockades. Even the layout, like, there's nothing interesting to see in that dungeon. There's nothing really much to say about the bosses or the lore. It's just the Stormwind prison. The only really interesting thing, and I don't want to go too deep into this, but like the only really interesting thing about the lore is there's this one guy that has a connection to Morbent Fell down in Duskwood. He's the necromancer down there, but that would take a while to explain all that lore talk. But there's really not much to say about the Stockades. I mean, I guess I'll just say that I would never suggest Stockades to someone as like an example of a classic WoW dungeon, just because it's so simple and because it's so boring. I think we finally have reached this moment. The Stockades, I'm going to put it as a D tier dungeon. Yeah, D tier dungeon. It's just kind of, it is so meh and it is boring. Stratholme is one of those endgame dungeons that I think is absolutely fantastic, but it is nowhere near as cool as Blackrock Depths, Scholomance, or Shadowfang Keep. Now, I'm a huge Scourge fan. I'm a massive fan of the Lich King and Warcraft 3 and all of it. And I love me some Stratholme. I am never disappointed whenever I do this dungeon. I love the look of Stratholme, the dark ambience of it. Dude, back in the day, speaking of dark ambience, back in the day, I used to do Stratholme while listening to dark ambience because, fun fact, one of my favorite musical genres is dark ambience. I'm one of those weirdos that I just like those deep, pulsing, spooky vibrations and stuff. Like, it just, I don't know, there's something about it that I just really enjoy. Some people like ASMR, like Krendor, for example. I really like dark ambience. And sometimes, man, I would do Stratholme and I'd be listening to dark ambience and, man, it was so creepy, and I was just so enchanted by it and so immersed. The dungeon's also like so cool with the fact that you're fighting all these undead, like former residents of the city. Then you're going and fighting the Scarlet Crusade, who has like this little bastion where they're holding themselves out at and trying to defend against all the undead that are trying to attack them. This is also where you learn that the Scarlet Crusade has been being manipulated, this entire time by a Dreadlord, because the final fight over on the Scarlet Monastery side, or the living side of Stratholme, is fighting a Dreadlord. You know, like, that's so cool. And then on the undead side, you've got Baron Rivendare, like up in like the big, not necropolis, but like the big ziggurat tower place or whatever. Like, you know, you destroy the 3 ziggurats to get in there, and like, you know, Stratholme is just such a cool dungeon. There's so much awesome lore behind it. The vibe is great. The bosses is great. Like, it's a really fun end game dungeon. What can I say? At least in my opinion, Stratholme is an S tier dungeon, but Shadowfang Keep and Scholomance and Blackrock Depths are still, they're pretty far above it, at least in my opinion, because these 3 are like S plus. This is S, if that makes sense. And now let's kind of flip it. We're going to Sunken Temple. Some people really like Sunken Temple. I have a friend of mine who I smoke cigars with. His name is Michael. He loves Sunken Temple. He thinks it's great. And in some ways, you know, I also like Sunken Temple. I like the fact that it's a sunken temple. You know, it's like this ancient ruin that you're going into that's in the middle of a swamp, and there's all like the green dragonflight inspiration and influence and whatnot. There's all the stuff with the Emerald Nightmare, and there's some interesting lore in Sunken Temple. But, you know, and Sunken Temple was such a beloved instance by many people that in Season of Discovery, Blizzard made it a raid. You know, just like Nomergon, just like Black Fathom Deeps. But whenever I've done Sunken Temple, not the raid in Season of Discovery, but whenever I was, you know, doing the dungeon form of Sunken Temple, it was never a dungeon that I looked forward to. And I don't really know why. I just don't really find Sunken Temple to be that interesting. There are plenty of dungeons, though, that I enjoy more than Sunken Temple. But at least in my opinion, I'd probably throw it in the B category. I wouldn't put it in the A or the S tier like maybe some of you guys would. But now we arrive to the Dead Mines. The Dead Mines, for many people, is one of, if not the best dungeons that Blizzard made in Classic WoW. And I love Dead Mines as well. Dead Mines has everything going for it. It's got the pre-little dungeon before you get to the dungeon. I love that. It's got a nice variety of rooms to explore. You're not just in some dumb mine the entire time. One second you're in a mine, then you're in this like forge like chamber area, then you're in like a logging room, then suddenly you're in this room with a giant battleship that's being constructed on like this dry dock and stuff. Like, dude, like the Dead Mines is such a cool, and is long too. Like, it's not a short dungeon. It takes a while to do Dead Mines. And so by the time you're done with it, you genuinely feel like you accomplished something. And there's some fantastic gear in the Dead Mines too. Like, you got the Blackened Defias outfit. Bro, if you play a rogue, you love the Dead Mines. Like, the Dead Mines is like, once you get past the Dead Mines as a rogue in World of Warcraft Classic, it's almost like the game kind of takes like a downward turn. You know what I mean? At least in my opinion. But my goodness, the amount of times that I have done Dead Mines. But it is not an S tier dungeon for me. I love it. I think Van Cleef is awesome. Like, I think the Defias Brotherhood are one of the best enemy factions in Classic WoW, if not the best. But at least for me, Dead Mines is not an S tier. It is an A tier dungeon. It's just lacking a few things, at least in my opinion, that truly make it like one of the best, but my goodness, is it good. And then we arrive to Uldaman. I hate Uldaman. I said it. This is the only dungeon on this whole list that I will genuinely just flat out say, my goodness, do I hate this dungeon. I don't like the look of this dungeon. I don't like the Indiana Jones references in it. I'm not really a big fan of all like the dwarf and titan lore stuff. I never really found all that stuff that interesting. Even to this day, I don't find all that stuff that interesting in Warcraft lore. Like, the dwarves and stuff used to be made of stone, and then there was the curse of flesh and stuff. It's like, okay, like, I guess that's cool. You know, and the gnomes used to be robots, and then they became fleshy people. Okay, like, I guess that's cool. But I just don't like Uldaman. I mean, there are some things that I like about it. You know, like, you're going deep underground and you're finding these ancient Titan ruins and stuff. But even like the fact that like the Titan stuff is also like it looks like ancient Greece. I always thought that was kind of weird. Like, what culture did this? Like, made these Greek looking pots and stuff and these Greek looking images that are on the side of the walls. Like, who did this? Like, you know, I guess it was just the dwarves back in the day, but like, why don't the dwarves still make stuff like this, or like make something that's kind of similar, I suppose. Like, I much preferred all the Titan stuff like in Northrend, where it wasn't so Greek. It just kind of had this more unique look to it, like in Ulduar and stuff, with the pillars and the stained glass windows and whatnot. I thought that looked a lot more interesting than just I don't know, discount ancient Greece architecture stuff hidden underground. But I don't like Uldaman. I didn't like it back in 2005. I don't like it now. Like, this is D tier. I'd rather do the Stockades than Uldaman, or Uldaman, whatever, like, any day. But now we arrive to Wailing Caverns. It has the Maradon vibe to it, at least in my opinion. You're kind of like way out far from civilization and like, you know, from society and whatnot, and you have found this cave in the middle of an oasis in the Barrens. And this cave is shaped, like the entrance to it is shaped like a skull, if you never noticed that. And you go inside, and like the pre-dungeon dungeon before you go into Wailing Caverns is pretty long. I don't know if it's the longest. I'd have to think about it compared to all the other ones in the game. But like, to go to Wailing Caverns, I mean, you go through the raptor and the snake room, and then you got like swim across like these little puddles and stuff that have like little pleiosiauruses and stuff in it. And you got to go through that one room with all like the fungal stuff, and there's like the rare spawn that spawns there that I recently found. And then there's the entrance. And then you go into one of the most confusing dungeons in all of Classic WoW. And at least in my opinion, that is one of the biggest appeals of Wailing Caverns. It should be confusing. It should be just a mess of tunnels and vines and water flow and stuff down there. And that's exactly what it is, and I love it. It's a little strange, though, that there's all these plants and stuff growing deep under the ground. I mean, where's the sunlight? You know what I mean? But then you learn about the Emerald Dream and how, what's his name? The druid that's down there, Naralaz, I think his name is. I'm completely blanking on names today. But you know, the druid that's down there, you know, he's being like, he's fighting against the Emerald Nightmare, and the Nightmare has this influence and stuff, and the dream is kind of like leaking out in this area. And like, it's really cool. Like, you got the druids of the Fang down there, and you got the Fang set for those of you that play rogues or druids or something. Like, Wailing Caverns is fun, man. It is, again, it's like one of those, like, textbook D&D adventure kind of feels, at least in my opinion. You know, the group going down underground to fight some corrupt druids or something in this, you know, ancient cave that was formed from, you know, the flowing of water over many, many thousands or millions of years. I love Wailing Caverns. Now, I could never spam Wailing Caverns. There are some people, bro, they can just spam dungeons over and over and over. I can never do that. And Wailing Caverns, most certainly not, because of how long it takes to do. But every now and then doing a Wailing Caverns run, I think is just fantastic. Not an S tier dungeon though, but it's up there with the Dead Mines as an A tier. And now at last, we arrive to Zul'Farrak. Zul'Farrak is a dungeon that many people really, really like. My friend Michael included. He really likes Zul'Farrak. And I've never really understood like why people enjoy Zul'Farrak so much. I mean, I think it's fun. You know, a bunch of trolls out in the desert and you're fighting them, and they're, you know, crazy like deities like Gozrilla and whatnot. And like that's cool, you know, Godzilla references aside. But like, I don't know, I've never been like that overly enchanted, I suppose, by Zul'Farrak and the trolls down there, and you know what all is happening in like their troll city. I remember playing my undead mage all those years ago though, and doing Zul'Farrak and getting run through this dungeon by a friend of mine. He was a level 60 orc shaman, and he would, you know, take me through it and whatnot. And that was always really fun. You know, him and my other friend Ben, you know, he played an undead warlock, and like the three of us, or maybe there was a fourth guy, I don't remember, but we would like, you know, go through Zul'Farrak over and over. And I remember getting a bunch of experience from that and some gear and whatnot. And, you know, so I have some fond memories with Zul'Farrak, but it's never been a dungeon that I get excited about. But then again, I mean, me and Krendor, we've had this debate many times over many years. Krendor loves Tanaris. He loves deserts. He's just a big fan of deserts. He likes the aesthetic of them, the vibe of them and stuff. And me, I'm kind of the opposite. I don't really like deserts. I've never been a big fan of movies that take place in deserts, like Dune, for example. I'm like, ugh, this place looks terrible. Get me out of here. Like, nah, man, I need trees. Like, I need trees and bushes and berries and stuff and places to go fishing. You know, what can I say? So, to conclude, I am going to throw Zul'Farrak on the C tier with all the other dungeons there, just because it's an okay dungeon, but for me, it's nothing special. And I think that's it. Anything that I would change last second? Nope, I think that's it. I think I'm happy with that. And that is it, everybody. That is Classic WoW Dungeons, my tier list from S tier to D tier complete. If you guys have any more tier list suggestions that you would like to suggest down in the comment section below, please feel free to suggest them down in the comment section below. It is very much appreciated, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and my stories, and maybe in some ways you agree with some of the stuff that I've said. Maybe in some ways you've disagreed. I know that there's going to be many people that are going to look at that Maraudon placement, and especially people that just skip to the end of these videos just to see my final ordering of things. They're going to see that Maraudon thing, and they're going to be like, this guy's insane. They're going to see that I put Dire Maul down there in the C tier with Zul'Farrak, and they're going to think I'm crazy, but I stand by it.